We are. It's taking me a little bit to get adjusted to this, but we should be good to go. But all right, yeah, there we go. We are live. Fantastic. I think I need to zoom this out a little bit. So we are trying a variety of new streaming setups here than I had before. So there's gonna be a couple bumps in the road. So I'm gonna apologize up front. This is gonna be a little bit different, but Bloomburrow launches on Arena tomorrow. And with that, I want to give everybody a chance to ask whatever questions you want to ask, strategy-wise, get help with stuff, whatever the case may be right now. So I'm going to set this up, move this over a little bit so I can follow the chat with everything going on. And I'm going to go ahead, while I have a quick second, send a link over to the folks on the Twitter. So if people want to come over, hang out, answering questions about Bloomburrow strategy. Give me one quick second, folks. I'm going to make sure everybody knows what we're doing. This is only going to be probably about an hour. I don't think it's going to be a real crazy stream. But if there's any cards people want to talk about or whatever, I think this is a good time for that. All right, cool. And let me put that. There we go. Boom. Now we have that all done for anybody who wants to come hang out. I'll actually go post this too in one of my Facebook groups so people can come over and see what's going on. I'll put this in the beginner group because this is going to be better for those folks, I think. All right, so people can come hang out. Be part of the shenanigans. But yeah, so let me say, first off, I want to apologize for stuff that happened with the stream during the live streamer event because there was some stuff going on with the service I was using and my software not speaking correctly to each other, and it wasn't as good of an experience as it could be, and I wasn't happy about it. Obviously, came through with some of my videos I posted as well. The audio was weird. So I got a whole different service I'm working with now. I spent literally 12 hours researching the other group that I'm using, the problems that I had. I learned all about virtual audio cables, like all kinds of things. So hopefully we should be good to go the rest of the season now, which is great. But first couple of questions. What do we got here? Looks like we have one from... Oh, that's just a comment saying, I have to work a 12-hour shift in like 8 hours. Good night. Well, thanks for at least stopping by. I appreciate that. Oh, you know what? I have... So everybody can see the chat here. I believe if I did this correctly... Oh, no, I had this on the other thing. Let me see if I can add the chat overlay to this. And then y'all can actually see the full chat conversation going on. And I will try to make that work for y'all. So let me go ahead and see if I can post that in here too. Make it a little easier. This is something I added on another scene I didn't add here. But I probably should have, now that I'm thinking about it. This here. Let's put the... Oh, actually, we already have a thing. I can just do that. Oh, yeah, cool. There it is. It's just there already. Fantastic. All right, so what do I think the meta will be? I don't think we can really answer that, right? Because we don't really know what everybody wants to play yet. Okay, that's not 100% true. I think in the beginning of the season, it's always going to lean heavier toward aggro, right? For two reasons. One, that's just going to be a favorite of a lot of people, right? If there's a new theme with a new creature type or whatever, in this case, we have what, like 10 new creature types? Like, people are going to want to play those. But the other part of that is, those are also the easiest decks to solve, I would say, for the average person, right? So you're going to see a lot of those. But the pattern every season is basically, the first 2 weeks you're going to see more aggro, then slowly the mid-rangey and the control decks start to gain their footing, and then you're going to see a few more control decks as the season goes on. Part of the reason, though, is that control decks genuinely struggle because they don't know what threats or what answers to play for the threats that are being presented, right? They don't know, should I be playing more creature counters or non-creature counters? Should I be playing, you know, more instant speed removal, or can I get away with the sorcerer speed removal? What search cards do I need to be playing, right? But as the meta starts to become more clear, those answers become a lot easier, and then those decks get progressively better. So that's usually what you can expect. So the first couple of weeks, be prepared to deal with a lot of creatures, basically. After that, it's kind of a crapshoot, depending on which way the metagame goes. What do we got here? P-Thread says, hello, how's it going? Technology Man, Esavero, how's it going? Jay Brown, how's it? Yeah, just a lot of people saying hello. Okay, so P-Thread says, maybe play Orzhov Life Gain as a counter. Maybe. I mean, here's the interesting thing. Like, bats early on so far have shown to be pretty popular. Even among everyone's different YouTube channels, I'm seeing a fair amount of views and discussion on the Bats deck, which means those are already going to be pretty popular. If that's the case, then I think what you're going to be running into is a lot of mirror matches if you go down that road. Like, which is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but those mirror matches are pretty rough. I mean, they are definitely long and drawn out. I just realized some of the messages are not showing up for everybody, and I'm not sure why that is. So I have a piece of technology that's not working 100% accurately. So I will need to figure out why that's a thing. I will mess with that later, though, I think. But glad I was able to do this now in a smaller stream and figure out or see that that's a problem. I don't know why it is, though. That's the weird part. Because, I don't know, maybe it's only picking up Twitch chat right now. Maybe that's part of the problem. But I can see everybody's conversation. So that's not the biggest issue. Like, I'm just wondering why they're not all showing up for everybody. So I'll have to figure that part out. Let's see. Thoughts on spending common, uncommon wild cards before opening packs? That's a pretty common story. I even had a video where I covered that a while ago. Here's the thing. It's mostly about converting your wild cards into gems. That's really what you're trying to do there, right? So if you have the spare commons and uncommons, or you know you're going to have a lot left over, might as well go ahead and just fill out for the set, and then everything you open after that contributes towards you getting gems, basically. Or filling your whatever we call that, filling your chest, so that way you get more rare and mythic wild cards. So if you have them to spare, it's actually a reasonable idea. I wouldn't say you're gaming the system, but it's just letting you convert wild cards that otherwise aren't going to have a lot of value to you. Because commons and uncommon wild cards, once you've been playing for more than 6 months, like basically a dime a dozen, really. MTG Brew Lab, I saw you sneaking here. How's it going, friend? Hope mid-range is better, get better in best of one. I don't think mid-range is a problem right now in best of one. Like, you can play all kinds of stuff in best of one on the ladder. I'm a little surprised that's even a thing. The links will be popular if life gain is popular. Oh, the 5/4 links. Yeah, that's true. That could very well be popular. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and switch screens here. I'll have to bring the chat box up. Actually, I don't even know if I'm going to bother with the chat box right now, because it is only picking up Twitch, so I'm not going to put that up at the moment. But yeah, if you want to talk about the links, I don't remember what it's called, but I can search it this way under creature types. Links in red in future standard. Like, there's not going to be very many of those. It is. Oh, is it not? Links is in the name. A creature type is beast, I think. That's why. I was like, wait a minute. I know exactly what card you're talking about. There we go. This thing. Sunspine links. Oh, it's Elemental Cat. It's not even beast. Look at that. I was totally wrong. Yeah, I think this is a good answer, right? If you are seeing a lot of life gain, you're all seeing like the Orzhov bats or whatever, you may just main deck this thing. I mean, they can't gain life, and you're going to deal some extra damage to them. Now, I don't know how many of these you'd want to play. I think this is one I would wait as a metagame call for the most part, because I think low to the ground mono red's still going to do low to the ground mono red things. But this card could actually be really good if you're seeing a lot of the life gain stuff. Temporary lockdown meta incoming. You know, some people have said that. I think possibly. Like, I think the card's already been good, so I think people will still play it. You know, I think it's the right thing to probably still do, honestly. But I think if everybody knows it's a thing, it becomes less useful of a thing. Like, you still play it. It just means, I think, to the level it's going to be dominant is reduced. But it does mean my boy Scrap Shooter gets to be a little bit better. So, you know, if you want to play it. Let's see. The creature type you're most interested in is lizards right now. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Lizards is probably still going to be pretty solid for a minute. P-Thread says, should I wait to buy decks until I see what others are playing and what the meta ends up being? This is always a tough one, and I don't like making financial decisions for people. However, I do have a cards you should craft and cards you should not craft that are going to go live here in about 2 hours. 2 hours, 15 minutes on YouTube. So expect to see those. But generally, if you already have a deck to play for the season, like most of your stuff carries over from a previous deck or whatever, you can be patient and just pick up the cards you need once you see kind of what the meta is or whatever. If you just want to have fun and you have the resources, then if you're mostly crafting cards that are just solid anyway, then you'll be fine, right? You'll just make adjustments to the deck as necessary. You can keep playing. The other thing is, too, like, there's some stores and some events still going on right now where, like, this weekend, you're going to be able to play for real prizes. So, like, you don't have time to wait, right? So you just want to play something you're comfortable with that's reasonably safe, and then just go for it. But I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's mostly just about, like, your personal situation and what resources you have available, honestly. Any recommendation on decks to build week 1? There's a lot. Take a look at my videos. Like, look at videos other creators have put up. Like, there's a bunch. There's no one right answer to that, unfortunately. I would say more often than not, it's going to be down to what type of deck you enjoy playing, right? I think that's always a tough thing, right? When anybody, whether it's me, if some other creator, some top-level player, whatever, tells you, build this deck, this is the best deck, these are the tier 1 decks. Like, if ultimately it doesn't fit your play style or it's not something you enjoy playing anyway, then who cares? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter that the deck's good or bad or whatever. Like, you're not enjoying playing it. It's really a waste. Like, I would rather play a deck that's a tier 2 deck and that I enjoy more, because you're going to win more than you would with the tier 1 deck. I know that doesn't make much sense, but if you're more engaged, you're happier, you're going to make fewer mistakes, whatever, then just go for it. That's what I would do. I mean, I was talking about this in one of the live streams last week, that I've seen that with people going to PTQs and whatever. They're focusing on just playing the best deck instead of learning to play the deck they are comfortable with as well as possible. And a lot of times that just leads to disaster. Mark Roberts says, as someone who enjoys a more controlling game, what type of things in your experience with the early access could we use? I was thinking temporary lockdown. The tools you already know about. There's really no surprises. I mean, there's a new sweeper, but I don't know if we need it because the other sweepers you have right now are fine. Like, there's some other search cards in blue that look at the top X cards or whatever that, like, you could explore. But again, I just think, like I was talking about to open the stream, is just, when it comes to control decks, they mostly need the metagame to shake out to be at their final form or whatever, you know, like, because otherwise, like, you probably play lockdowns because there's going to be a bunch of mice and lizards or whatever. But if there ends up being a lot of Golgari mid-range and Gruul aggro or whatever that's playing 3, 4, and 5 cost monsters, like, they're going to look real bad, right? You still do it because it's the best call, but just, it could go either way is all I'm saying. Like, till the metagame shakes out, you won't really know. Also, you know, I feel bad for you because you're a control player. No, I'm just kidding. Good evening, Nicodemus. How's it going? Pages by Brandon says, I just hit Mythic for the first time. Any tips on getting back up there after rotation, but faster? Let me ask this. And maybe this is a discussion for the Discord. This probably won't work well in an actual chat here. Oh, wow. But let me say, does it matter if you get to Mythic in a week or if you get there in 4 weeks? And I mean that, and this isn't me like taking a shot at anybody, but like this is more of a like philosophical question for everybody listening. Like, does it really matter if you get there in a week or if you get there in 4 weeks? Like, even if I give you a strategy and it's like, go play this deck, you will get to Mythic in 1 week. If you're miserable playing all those games for 1 week, but you have way more fun playing those games over 4 weeks and you still get to Mythic, does it really matter? You had more fun getting there in 4 weeks. Because at the end of the thing, like, you're getting the same reward. You know what I mean? Like, and I tell people, even once you're at Mythic, like, unless you're playing every day to stay active in the top, whatever it is, 1200 or whatever to qualify for the end of the season thing, it doesn't really matter. Like, how I literally goof off, I build a bunch of bad decks, killing rank or whatever, till I get to a good one that day that I end up making a video out of. And, like, I still make Mythic a bunch of the times. So, like, it can be done. It's not, and I don't want to demean, like, saying making Mythic doesn't matter, because to some people it really is important. But I don't think it's the end all be all. Like, obviously the pinnacle is, hey, let me get into the top 500, 800, whatever, do well at the end of season tournament, get qualified for the Pro Tour, all that stuff. But otherwise, like, getting the Mythic isn't that much different than being at Diamond. It's really not. Jay Brown says, this is a different subject, but I feel Modern Horizons 3 did wrong by not being in the standard and the alchemy format. No, Modern Horizons 3 definitely would not fit in the general standard format. The cards are designed specifically with modern cards in mind. They do not need to be in standard. Like, just, that's not even a question. Mark Fragola says, I've been playing around with Vesuvan Duplimancy. It opens up a lot of possibilities. Bruh, I'm going to be real with you. I have tried making, how many hours of my life has that card consumed? Probably a good 8 to 10 hours since it's been released. And just nothing is consistent with that card. Like, it's a fun card. And I imagine somebody playing Commander can probably make that pop off and do some insane things. But it literally it's a card that does nothing for like 6 games. And then one time it's going to look like a monster and it's an unbeatable thing and your board looks ridiculous. But generally, like, yeah, it's just not it, you know? Benny Bedtime says, love your videos. Thanks for the help. Hey, thank you for watching. If you don't watch, it's not worth it for me to make videos. Let's see. Brandon Ding says, thoughts on black-white 2 CMC, destroy all non-land permanents. I think it'll also be good. P.S. I love your content. Cycling card, by the way. Wait, I don't understand that. Thoughts on a black and white card that destroys all non-land permanents? What is this thing you're talking about? This, I don't even know what card referring. That doesn't even exist. That sounds insane. Like, I don't know what we're talking about. I need more details before I can give you a good response. Isla Kaplan, what's up? He says, Dowerport Mage, do you think it'll see play in 60 card formats? It's an interesting card. I think, oh yeah, let's bring that one up. That's a good question. Bring up the Port Mage. This one. 2 mana, 1/3, Frog Wizard. Whenever one or more other creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, draw a card. You can pay 2, return another creature you control to the owner's hand. This is a card that I feel like I feel like there's 2 ways frogs can go, basically. I think there's this card, the one that you have to bounce something every turn, the one that gets a +1/+1 when you bounce something, the one when you draw a card, right? I think those 4 together make up some semblance of whatever the early bounce frog strategy could be. And then I think there's also the other frogs that care about doing big things, tapping your opponents down, drawing extra cards, you know, basically the spin 4 ability, whatever, right? Doing all that. I don't know which one's actually better yet. And I think we have a very limited sample size, because even in the streamer event, I don't think anybody really built what's close to the best version of either of those. I think we saw some very interesting ideas, but I think we're all still pretty far away from what the end result's going to look like. So, could it be playable? Probably, if that style of frog deck matters, right? If that becomes a real player, then sure, probably. If it doesn't, then this particular card probably isn't, if I were guessing. I know it's not a great answer, but it's really kind of dependent on the metagame for the most part, on if that's even a real strategy. P-Thread says, I've been recently building a deck on Moxfield for Orzhov Life Gain. I'm wondering if you could help me out with some cards. I should edit it if I send the deck list to Moxfield. Here's the deal. If you want to talk about deck lists or anything like that, any strategy stuff, you can always hop into my Discord. Links in my YouTube videos. I think if you're on Twitch, you can do !Discord. It brings up the link. You can go in Discord. Post it in the standard channel. We have a whole community of people to help you out with deck lists. However, if you want to send deck lists directly to me and get help with decks, I have a level 3 membership on YouTube, and my YouTube members, it's like $5. Like, it takes you to a form that goes straight to my email, and then I can help you out with that directly and personally, back and forth through email if you want to do that. So I have a free option that I will participate as I'm available. The community will help you out. You get all that. That's free. It's in the Discord. If you want the paid option, it comes through. But otherwise, I can't look at a bunch of deck lists individually because I would just have a ton of people wanting me to look at deck lists. Like, I literally have to tell people, like, my DMs on any social platforms are generally for business. Because if I don't, even when I just, like, help somebody out one time, immediately they start wanting to send me a bunch of deck lists. And I'm sure I've talked to a couple other creators, actually, who've experienced this as well. It's like, people just want to send you constant deck lists all the time. So I kind of had to create 2 lanes so people can get help how they need it. But that's kind of how I can deal with that. Eddie 2016 Cubs says, did I miss them adding more cats? That would be fire. I don't know. Did we add more cats or not to this set? I don't think we did add cats to this set, honestly. Let me look up creature type cat. In Bloomburrow, I don't believe there were any that I missed that were important. I mean, there was the elemental cat we were just talking about. Yeah, there's elemental cat and there's Ygra. That's it. There's only 2. So I guess you didn't miss much. But to be fair, this isn't really a cat set, so I kind of get it. What else we got here? I'll be at MC Vegas in October. And I've got an arena-based cube, no digital stuff. Let me know if you want to play it sometime that weekend. Truthfully, when I'm at a MagicCon, I don't have a lot of time to play. I'm generally, if I'm not making content of some variety, like for this one, I will be doing something every day for the convention. Plus, generally, I have like meet and greet time set up. Probably be doing some stuff with the Commander Advisory Group. Like, if I have some downtime, I'm usually only playing... Like, using Chicago as an example, I think I played 1 set of games with the VIPs, because that was a thing I was asked to do. I played in the Commander and Cocktails event, because Brian David Marshall was running it, and I wanted to make sure that popped off for him. And then outside of those, I think I only played... Did I only play 2 games all weekend? Maybe 3. 2 or 3. I didn't play very many. I'd like to spend my time being busy, because that's the only time... these times in the industry, when you're at a MagicCon or a Command Fest or whatever, that you get all the other creators in a space, that you get all the vendors in a space. If we want to talk business with somebody, if we want to talk with people at Wizards, like, everybody's kind of in the same room. So, not saying I won't, and I spend a lot of time talking to just viewers, fans, followers as well. So, like, that's where a lot of that time goes. And I actually love that. I don't have a problem with it, but I don't spend a lot of time playing, believe it or not. A lot of times I don't even bring like 2 or 3 decks with me, because I know I'm not going to have a lot of time to play. I appreciate the invite, but you're better off catching me probably when we have a break, grabbing a drink, or, you know, maybe one of the evenings going to dinner or something. Shane's birthday tweet said, this would have been the perfect set to reprint Engineered Plague. Nope, you definitely don't need to reprint that card, especially when you're printing a bunch of small creatures. Frostbite says, play aggro early and often for the first week of the new set drops. People are experimenting. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We were talking about that earlier. Pages by Brandon says, to answer, it's fun playing my Degenerate Festival Crusher deck, which got me there. But yeah, want to do content creation playing Jank, but my consultation said Mythic status helps. That's actually not true. I think that's a misconception by a lot of people. But I even purposely did it for a couple of seasons just to show the numbers, and my numbers were no different being at Mythic versus not. Matter of fact, go look at some of the biggest creators. Like a lot of times later in the season, like LVD wasn't even playing at Mythic, but he's still getting tons of views, right? There are smaller creators that have raced to Mythic, and they're putting Mythic on every single title and thumbnail, but they're only getting 100 views, right? At the end of the day, it's, are you having fun? Are your decks fun? Are you a good presenter? Is your quality good? That's it. You know, it's just the way it is. Like, being at Mythic doesn't make the difference. Like, plus, think about this as well. Like, if you raced to Mythic just to be at Mythic, what does that really say about your content? Right? All right, so you're at Mythic. Okay, so you're playing a bunch of games at Mythic. What does that really do? Right? You raced to get there with whatever the easiest deck was to get there, and now you're just making content at Mythic. Like, that's not really different than if you made content at Platinum or Diamond. And the reality is, more of your viewers are going to be at Gold, Platinum, Diamond than they are at Mythic anyway. So more people might find it more relatable to get through the trenches of Platinum and Diamond than they would even at Mythic. Because the reality is, at Mythic, unless, like we talked about earlier, you're trying to stay in that top 1,200, the games tend to be easier at Mythic because people have nothing else to play for, right? They already got the max prizes they're going to get for the season, and they know they're not going to play enough to keep their ranking from degenerating in those top 1,200 or whatever, or top 1,500, I guess it is now, whatever it is. So, like, they just play whatever. So, like, that's also not going to be a thing that matters. Like, at the end of the day, and here's the thing, YouTube as a whole, man, I'm actually in a Discord with vidIQ. I help them out with people making, doing better YouTube stuff. There's no true shortcut. They're just not. Like, if it was just about being at Mythic, think about the fact that every one of us creators, we would just spend our first day or two just getting to Mythic. We wouldn't do anything else. You know what I mean? If that was the difference in us getting more views and making more money and paying our bills, all of us would just race to Mythic. Because that would be the smart thing to do. Like, and I'm not taking shots at you. I'm just like, logically speaking, if that was the answer to getting more views, we would all do it by now, right? But if you notice, even a lot of the people getting a lot of views don't bother with that. We get there when we get there. Oh, y'all were saying Pest Control was that card from earlier. Got it. Let's see what else we got here. Is Golgari playable in BLB Standard? Like, it was playable before. It's playable now. Like, you keep most of your parts, and you gain a 3/2 squirrel. And a variety of removal you can experiment with. Let's see. Privacy Managed says, I fell in love with Glarb, Calamity's Augur. I haven't seen anyone really preparing to use it in their deck at all. I'm kind of new to the game, so I'm not sure what the niche is for this card. I would wait on Glarb. I think Glarb is going to be one of those cards that, if it gets a chance, will be later in the season more than early. Because you'll know what other cards need to be in the deck to get you to the point in the game where Glarb can be successful. You can do it now, but you're going to be doing a lot more guessing. So you're going to run into a lot of situations where you're just going to get run down too fast before Glarb gets to do anything. And I'm not even sure, like, Glarb might be a piece to something else, but I don't even know if Glarb would be the thing you base the deck around. Not saying we can't. It's still early. We don't really know. But it feels more like a piece than a centerpiece, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think you're going to have to wait and see what you're defending against first to know even what other options you should play, right? Because you want that payoff to matter. So it's like, should you be playing more, especially at like 4 or 5 mana, right? Are we playing more things that spot remove things, or playing more things that draw cards or gain life, or should we be building some crazy version that plays whatever that 4 or 5 that gives you all the different triggers or whatever, right? Like a billion different things that could make sense, but it really depends on what the rest of the meta looks like. How would you rank the season cards? Honestly, all of them in a pile with the red one at the bottom. Like, the red ones just feel like the worst one. And I'd love to be wrong, but it feels like the worst one. The others kind of just depends. Got some hellos here in chat. Well, hello back. Is Delny going to be playable with some of the back cards with Starscape Cleric? Here's the thing. I think Delney is playable. I just don't know if Delney is necessary. And those are not equal on the same lines there, right? Like, playable, yes. There are definitely some things you can do with it. She can definitely trigger some things. But do you really need her to? You know what I mean? Like, the other bats are all just doing their thing already very well. And they all play off each other already. You're already getting extra life, drawing extra cards, making extra tokens, draining your opponent's life, returning stuff from the graveyard. Like, would you rather have Delney in place of any one of those to just, like, gain a couple more life on the turn? Or drain your opponent for one more point, or whatever, when the other bat was probably going to do that anyway. And then you get in weird situations, too, that, like, if you have an Augur, well, you're risking drawing more cards, but also possibly losing more life or whatever. So, like, if you play Delney, which is fine, I think you're going to have to think about the construction of the deck a little bit more, too, to justify that. What's my take on rabbits? They're a fine creature deck. I think there weren't as many rabbit tokens as we thought there were going to be, but, like, you can still totally play it as a just Selesnya aggro deck. What are your thoughts on Caretaker's talent in control for drawing? Let's bring that one up. Let's see. Caretaker's talent, we say. Caretaker talent. Whoa, if I spell this correctly, that would help. All right. Caretaker's talents. Oh, in control for drawing? No. I just realized what you were saying. No, I saw somebody else doing this, and I felt like it just gave my deck entirely too much time. Like, you're taking a turn off to do nothing. Like, if you're playing some mid-rangey thing that's already, like, making tokens or something, sure. But for actual control, like, there's just better ways to draw cards. Like, this, I mean, I guess, okay. There's probably some version of control where, like, some third to half of your things are making tokens. So, sure, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but the reality is you just have better things that can draw cards. Like, just actual, like, blue cards that just look at more cards to get you card quality. You don't even have to just draw a random card. So, like, you just don't have to play this. And I would question, what cards are you playing that make tokens that are better than just playing the things that just keep the board clear and then let you just win with whatever your finisher is, like traditional Orzhov control. Now, again, I think there's a world where this is a fine card and you're playing mid-rangey things that are making tokens on top of doing other stuff or whatever. And, like, yeah, go for it. This card's actually decent. Like, have fun with it. I mean, we have the other cards still standard legal anyway, right? The same thing. But instead of a token, it's just a creature power 3 or less or whatever, that thing. So, like, that might be better because then you can just play more things and draw cards. Because, like, the upside of this above that is, like, sure, you can copy tokens or whatever, but what are you copying? Like, 1/1s, 2/2s, maybe? So, like, I don't know. There's probably a world. I could be really wrong, but I would say right now, I probably wouldn't be looking to play that in control. Hello to you too there, Lee Brown. Gruul Prowess, any updates? I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, I don't know if it needs an update. like I mean, it's a random question, but, like, what are you concerned? Like, let's try this for the stream. Instead of people just saying, like, because this is the second or third time something like this has come up. Ask me a specific question that you want an answer to. Like, is there something you're trying to solve with the deck? Is there a card you have a question about? Or whatever. Like, that makes for a much better conversation other than, like, we're just going to have to talk philosophically about something if I don't know exactly what you're trying to get at. Maybe the 2/3 color frogs could be a piece of an Atraxa strategy. Yeah, possibly. I mean, that's real. Will the Black Season card get hated as much as Invoke Despair? Not even close. Not even close. Hello there to you, Francois. What color got the most help in BLB and the least help? I don't even know if we know that answer yet. I mean, I guess, because here's the other problem. Like, what would we say was hurting or helping each color? Like, what did each color need? Like this is kind of the thing. And here's the problem. Why like, and this is, I'm nothing wrong with the question, but I think these are the hard questions to answer because just like when we were live, some people are saying like, well, I really hope, that Golgari is playable, but it's like Golgari's been playable. Like, oh, I really hope Mono Green's playable. Mono Green's been playable, right? So if somebody has the perspective that Golgari or Mono Green has been unplayable, then they're looking for certain cards to help those, right? But if somebody already believes those are good, then them losing one card could be what's hurtful, and they didn't gain as much or whatever. So I think without knowing our starting point, that's a tough conversation to have. Positive win rate is easier to achieve in Mythic 13.0 and is what big names use to promote their brews. I agree with what you said, but at least one counterpoint for fun. Sort of, but if you look, those big creators, even when they don't have those big numbers, are still getting the same numbers. Right? They're getting a few extra views maybe on those particular videos because, people are chasing the dragon and they're just not going to get the results that those creators got for a lot of reasons. It could be luck, could be your strategy, random matchups. You just don't play as well as the creator does. So those will get a small bump, but not enough that I would say it's going to change your content. Am I going to play some games tonight? There's no games to be played. We don't have Bloomburrow till tomorrow. I've been wondering about how to keep the lands decks around once the Capenna fetches rotate. Any idea? They take a big hit, period. They are not, even if you play lands decks, they don't look the same anymore. They're going a whole different strategy, all different cards. You don't get the life gain you used to get. Are some still playable? Sure. You have Big Lumra, you have the 1/2 frog that puts a land into play. You've got a few different things. But yeah, they're just not going to look the same at all. They're basically starting over with a new tactic and a new way to kill, because the life gain was such a big deal for those decks to buy all the time to get to the crazy doppelgangs and whatever else you want to do. You just got to go a different route with it now. Let's see. I see James Thomas saying you're running Hop to it, playing copy Offsprings, whatever. Yeah, if you're doing that with that talent, that's fine, but that's not a control deck. That's just a token deck playing the talent, which makes sense because you're going to hit way more often on that thing and be able to do some cool stuff. We were talking specifically with it being in the space of the control decks. Matthew says, BLB got any specific crime mechanic creatures? No. Crime was... This is the problem when we're doing one set blocks effectively, right? You get mechanics that we don't even get to reference in the next set. So while things can still be a crime or commit a crime by the definition of what crime is, there are no cards that are going to care about committing crimes. Unless we go back to New Capenna or something next year or something probably. But as it stands, no, you're not going to see that word on this set. Possibly next set, because Duskborn is a horror set. So, some people might be committing some crimes of murder. So that could be a thing. But none in Bloomburrow. Do I think Armadillo Cloak will come back? That is such a random question. I have no statement on that. It could literally be, it's just if they want to print it. I mean, do I think it will? I mean, I don't know. Are we looking for odds? That's literally do I think Lightning Bolt will come back? Or I don't know. Demonic Tutor, right? It could be anything. Yeah, that one, I don't know if I really have an opinion on. I guess more accurate, I would say, is it possible it can come back? Yes. I think that's probably the best way I could answer that. Is it realistically possible it could come back? Yes. Been a while since I played. How's life for the graveyard players these days? It's a little better, I guess, since we lose Graveyard Trespasser, we lose Farewell, so that makes it a little better, I would say. There's some new cards that are a little problematic, but we don't know how popular they're going to be yet. But yeah, I think it's more normal compared to where it was recently, I guess. But there's still some playable answers to it. But yeah, if you want to do graveyard shenanigans, still totally a thing. And there's still some graveyard strategies, right? There's still the Reanimator stuff. There's the Azorius, like, what's his name? Or not Obnixus. The Rakdos joins up or whatever, that graveyard combo. There's, I think I said Reanimator. Oh, Roots is still a thing, right? That uses the graveyard. So, like, there's a few different things. For sure. And then even now, with like the graveyard being for some amount of forage or whatever, right? Like that's still a mechanic in set that needs a graveyard. So yeah, graveyard's still a thing. Let's see. There are some good crime enablers and outlaws. That's true. There's still things that count as outlaws. I mean, as evidenced by the lizard decks that we're playing had some stuff that cared about outlaws, and all the lizards happen to be outlaws, right? So that was just kind of like a cool thing they did without actually saying these are outlaws or this is a crime deck. Like you got stuff that's still connected. So that was at least nice. If you copy a gift spell, do you have to gift twice for the secondary effect of the copied spell? I believe the way gift is worded. Let me go check. Let me look up the rules on gift mechanic MTG, because I'm sure that's going to be one of the first questions that comes up on it. Let's see. No, not that one. That's not the file I'm looking for. Release notes. That's what I'm looking for. On gift. I will control F to save time here, so I can get you your answer. Let's see. Gift, goodness, blah, blah. Gift a card. Okay. General gift notes. As an additional cost to cast a spell with gift, you can promise the gift listed, blah, blah, blah. It gives the opponent a later time. A permanent spell with gift. An ability triggers when the permanent enters the play if the gift was promised. Instants and sorceries with gift. You give it to them, then resolve it. If a spell which the gift was promised is countered, doesn't resolve, or is otherwise removed from the stack, the gift won't be given. So that's cool. If you can't, you can't pay a gift cost more than once. That's kind of funny. There would be some random situations. All right, if you copy a spell for which the gift was promised, the gift was also promised to the same opponent for the... Okay, hold on. That's a weird sentence. If you copy a spell for which the gift was promised, the gift was also promised to the same opponent for the copy. What does that sentence even mean? I literally read that word for word. If you copy a spell for which the gift was promised, comma, the gift was also promised to the same... Oh, okay, I got it. So it's saying if you copied the gift, the same opponent has to get the gift when you copy it. If a card or token enters as a copy of a permanent that's already on the battlefield, the gift isn't promised for the new permanent. That makes sense. Yeah, it sounds like if you copy it and it was gifted, then there is a gift and the gift goes to the same person. Yeah, that's at least that's the way it reads with this entry that's here. So I would say if you gift it, the new spell also has a gift offered if you copy. That would be my assumption as of right now. Hey, Drift Ronin, how's it going? Alex Curley says, what was your favorite new group to play from your early access? Raccoons. I think this has been my answer all the time. I just picked one and said it. I'm not good at favorites. I have like maybe 10 things in the world that I even have favorites of, and even then it's questionable. But yeah, raccoons. That's going to be my answer. Would Orzhov Phyrexians with Lunar Convocation competes for Standard? I'm not going to be able to answer anything competes or doesn't compete right now. We don't know. Like, we literally don't know. We can guess, and I could give you some information, but we 100% don't know. At best, I'm probably giving you like a 60-40. Now, does Lunar Convocation work in Orzhov Phyrexians? Maybe not, because I don't know that many things in the Phyrexian deck that I'm gaining life with. I'm trying to think of like how many things in the Phyrexian deck am I really gaining, like maybe way late in the game, but then I also don't know if I want to set on a card that I need to wait till late in the game for it to really do something in that style of deck. So I don't think it's a matter if the card competes, because I think Orzhov Phyrexians is fine and playable on the ladder. I just don't know if it needs Lunar Convocation, would probably be the bigger issue. With that line of thought, do I believe Termagoyf would be a good reprint for Foundation? Has Standard crept enough that even in Standard it's not... Goyf wasn't too strong for Standard when it was around the first time. I think we have that misconception because Standard was a big part of, like, Modern for a long time. So we go like, this thing must have been busted. And Standard, like, no, we played plenty of Standard with it and it wasn't overpowered. I mean, it still dies to all the stuff it would die to or whatever. It's just later in the game, it's an undercosted, sizable creature. But so is, like, Somnophage, as an example, right? It's effectively a black Termagoyf with some extra upside. Or Souls of the Lost or whatever. So it's not that big a deal. We have those other cards, like, yeah, Goyf could be reprinted. Let's see. So what's the 1 or 2 cards in Bloomburrow you are most excited to build around? Do I like Dream Dew Entrancer plus Salvation Swan? Okay. There's a lot happening there. Let's talk about the Dream Dew Entrancer first. I believe, is that the one that taps stuff? It is the one that taps stuff. So there's a 4-mana, 3/4 Frog Wizard with Reach. When Dream Dew Entrancer enters, tap up to 1 target creature and put 3 stun counters on it so it doesn't untap for 3 turns. And if you control that creature, you draw 2 cards. And then the other card you were talking about was Salvation Swan. This is also 4 mana, 3/3 flash flying. When Swan or the bird you control, or another bird you control enters, exile up to 1 target creature you control with flying, without flying, return to the battlefield under control. Like, here's the problem. I don't. There's a lot going on here. Why I would just say I'm probably not gonna even play this in a video. That's not true. We play a lot of weird decks later in the season, but the problem you have here is that this is green-blue, so you're already talking about 2 colors. Right? And you want to add a 3rd color. They're both 4 mana, right? The first blink with this is really cool because then you get to blink this, you lock something else down, right? Maybe you have 2 things locked down for a couple turns. But then you also have to have other birds on top of also having the Entrancer in your deck. And you're going to need some other amount of non-flying things. Otherwise, you're mostly on the Entrancer, and then when you don't have the Entrancer, it's going to suck because you have all these other birds that can't really... Like, honestly, I think the Swan, for me, kind of shows the problem as to why you haven't seen any good bird decks yet. Because a bunch of the birds that are interesting say you need to have some number of creatures without flying in your deck as well. And the only bird I believe we have that doesn't have flying is the Roadrunner. And it's also not in either white or blue. So that's a different thing. But I think that's the bigger issue of what else are you playing that doesn't have flying and how many things are you playing that do have flying? Or are you maybe just playing a bunch of frogs with this and like maybe one other bird and then just getting the occasional bounce effect and having that be good when it's good, right? So like I don't really know the answer. But right now, I would say early in the season, I would stay away from crafting those until you have a better understanding of what that deck needs to look like. Have you seen opponents be less likely to counter gift mechanic spells since they lose something when it fails to resolve? Specifically, card draw, not sure, on food or fish are worth it. Not really. I think usually if you're offering somebody the gift, the upside for you is big enough that unless they're digging for a very specific card, they're just going to treat it as they normally would, right? Because if it benefits you greatly enough, it's worth it for them to stop it just the same. And if it doesn't, they ignore it and they get a card. So I'm sure that will come into play at some point, but haven't really seen it yet. I will say my only major problem with the gifts is that it feels like giving a card and giving a food are significantly bigger of a game swing than giving somebody a 1/1 fish. You know what I mean? Like it feels like I feel like that should have been something else that we could offer. I don't know what it would have been, but it could have been something. Like giving the 1/1 fish just seems kind of silly on some cards. I think good players would still counter it if they deem the card to be an unanswerable. Yeah, exactly. If it's a problem, it's still a problem. AZN for life. How's it going? Jason Korf says, how did playing in the Bloomburrow streamer event affect your opinions on the cards? And which ones performed better than you expected? And which ones disappointed you after playing with them? It's funny you should ask that because one, I think largely, this is probably the first set in a while, I would say more prognostics would probably be the correct term there, were accurate than they were inaccurate on this set. Meaning that most of us probably were, if we all had like our top 10 predictions, I would be surprised if most people didn't get at least 6 out of 10 right on this one. Where normally we're probably 50-50 or 40-60 or whatever. I think 6 or 7 of the things most people picked are probably going to be closer to accurate with this particular set. So not a ton of surprises. However, in an hour and a half, you can see 2 videos that specifically talk about cards that are overperforming that you might want to craft and cards that are underperforming that you probably don't want to craft to start the season. So yeah, you'll have 2 videos launching in an hour and a half. So there you go. Do you think, this is from Felix here, says, do you think this is a good idea to craft 2 to 3 copies of Fable Passages already? Yeah, Fable Passages is a fine card. Like we know we played it before. There's no reason it's going to be significantly different now. Especially on top of if you're playing anything that cares about the landfall stuff, if you want to have extra cards in your graveyard, whatever. Like, there's a lot of reasons people are going to want to play with Fable Passage. So, like, yeah, might as well get your 4 of them and just have some fun with them. Given the somewhat open format, are there any generic tools you're putting in the sideboards, like sweepers for Convoke? I mean, just all the typical stuff. Like, if you expect there's going to be a lot of discard stuff, you can play some stuff against that. If you think there's going to be sweepers, you can play some stuff with haste to play a post-sweeper or cards that are resilient to dying. You can play stuff that deals with small early creatures if you have things that gain life because you want to play against mono red. Like, these are all like the typical things. Like, when you don't know, you just put 2 to 4 of different things that, like, whatever your deck has the biggest problem with, like, whatever you think the biggest weakness is, that thing gets 4 to 6 slots, and then whatever other things you think you run into, they can have 2 or 3 slots apiece till you're up to 15. That's kind of the easiest way to do it, till the format is shaken out. Like, otherwise, we're kind of just guessing, you know? If we was getting fish tokens, surprised we didn't get more bears. That's true. Having bears to eat the fish would have been a really cool mechanic, honestly. I hadn't thought about that. Thanks for all the great content. Well, you are very welcome, Solar Updraft. Carl says, I think you're saying, what are your thoughts on Orzhov Bats has any good competitive deck? Orzhov Life Gain was already a decent deck, and now you get the deck with more flyers. So, yeah, it'll probably be fine. Speaking of fish, the one card I'm looking forward to trying out in Eternal formats is Into the Flood Maw. 1 CMC bounce, hate piece. Yeah, Into the Flood Maw. Let's talk about that card. Oop, not that page, this page. Into the Flood Maw. It's 1 blue, instant. Gift a tapped fish. Return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. If the gift was promised, instead, return target non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. I think in general, this card might even be playable in Standard. You know, especially if you're playing even like Otters or something like that. Like, it seems really random to like, oh, I just bounce a creature. But like sometimes just getting a creature out of the way when you're attacking with 4 power prowess things or whatever is enough, right? And if sometimes even if you're getting away the big thing that has death touch or could gain them life or whatever, and you're just giving them hell, you're not even giving them a fish, you give them a tapped fish. So it's not even like it's going to block immediately anyway, you know? Or get rid of their temporary lockdown and get, I don't know, 3 Otters back or something. You know, right? Like that could still be a reasonable thing. So yeah, I think this card is just generally playable. I mean, historically though, unsummons with upside have tended to be. I mean, we just got through playing with the other one, right? That cycled out to let you scry or whatever, right? Anytime you get upside on unsummons, tends to be positive. So like, I would expect this to see some amount of play as well. Do I have a favorite Bloomburrow creature? Pff, yeah, like this ain't even a question. If you follow my content, you know this answer. It's Crapshooter, baby. This is my creature bay of the set, and it ain't even close. Like, I just want to leave this guy on screen and just stare at. Like, only thing downside, I wish it would have got sweeter art. I don't think the art does this guy justice. But, you know, he's got some light up arrows and he's like shooting stuff with his crossbow or whatever. So I get it. He's got reach. And he makes a weird little sound when you play it in Arena. Y'all will see tomorrow when you cast this card. It makes like a little pew pew or whatever. Like he's firing off an arrow, I guess. But the fact that it's a 4/4 for 3 and has reach is really good in a bunch of matchups. Like this card, if you go back and watch the video, like between Raccoons and the Gruul Aggro, I think I played it in both of those. Like this won some games against like bats and other random stuff because it's just like, well, you can't attack. I got a 4/4 that blocks you. And like getting one time we won specifically because we did get rid of an enchantment that helped us reset our board. So yeah, like this card's just generally good. Yeah, it's not even close. This card, by far my favorite card in the set. Unsummon is always good, even without the gift. Scrap Shooter is good. Yeah, absolutely. That was my whole thing on Scrap Shooter. The only downside to this card, really, and I think I mentioned this somewhere already, is that if you're playing this card as your main way to get rid of artifacts and enchantments, you do have to make a decision on, okay, are you trying to be aggressive or are you saving this as an answer for later, right? Which is a little weird when you have a 4/4. But if you're playing this and maybe only like 2 other things that get rid of artifacts and enchantments, so you're not totally reliant on these to be a removal, or your answers, I should say, then like it's pretty solid. And then you can kind of get your best of both worlds when you need it. So I think it's actually pretty cool. I like this card a lot. I think it goes into a few different decks. I have a mono green list I'm working on that's also going to be playing this card. It's a big body for 3 mana. And it kind of in some ways plays in the same space that Pulokranos did, the 4/5. But the main difference that Pulokranos was 3 green does make a difference because it means you can't play as many quirky lands if you want to try some stuff out. Like, I don't know, maybe you want to play like Fountain Port or something or whatever. Like, you don't get that option as easily because, you know, you can get stuck in some weird situations, or if you're playing another color with it. But then also, like I said, the upside of this is being able to get rid of artifact or enchantment, which is pretty sweet. And not have to give up that space. Because that's been always the issue with creature decks, is sometimes you have to give up other slots that could be aggression to have some answers. Like, now you're getting creatures that have your answers on them, so you don't have to give up that aggression. Let's see. Did I get a chance to build a good Is It Otter deck? Small sample size, but I failed to get the workable Otter deck. Here's the thing. I think Otters are playable, but I don't know if they're any better than you just doing a regular prowess deck. Right? There's not that many cards that care about you specifically playing an Otter. Kind of the same problem that the squirrels have, is like there's not that many things that really care about you having actual squirrels. So you're almost better just playing Otters as part of another deck. We already have a bunch of stuff like Monastery Swiftspear. You've got, I think the 1/2 dwarf might still be standard legal, that you play a non creature spell, it gets a +1/+1. Maybe not. I'd have to go look. But you also still have Slick Shot, which is a thing which basically has prowess, right? And a bunch of just random other cards that are good, that have prowess in blue and red. And we have all the stuff that cares about you playing an extra spell. You have like, what is it, Balthor or Balgor, whatever that guy is, the 1/3 that like all your creatures get a +1/+0 each time you play a non-creature spell, right? So I think some of the Otter stuff contributes to those, but I don't know if you need to be leaning on Otters. Like, they're cool for the prowess or spells matters decks. I just don't know if they need to be just otters. Does that mean the raccoons are also your favorite Bloomburrow group? Yeah. I'm just saying raccoons. Like, I'm picking that as my answer. Like, everybody wants to know that question, the answer to that question, so I just picked one, and I'm riding with raccoons. The best anti-bat deck. Something that kills creatures. I don't think it's a particular deck. Just bring your removal. Like, the thing about bats is generally just kill the thing that keeps the engine at that particular point in time, right? Like, if they have a bunch of life gainers already, but they don't have any life gainer payoffs, then just kill the life gainer payoff. If they have the life gainer payoffs, but they don't have enough life gain things, then just keep them off of life gain things. That's usually really the way to beat it. Like, just don't let their engines fire up, right? Because they want to be gaining life and losing life, and then having things that care about those get the triggers. So if you're eliminating parts of the engine, you don't have to get rid of every creature, just the problematic ones. The raccoon you mentioned reminds you of Gym Razor. Of sorts. Yeah, kind of. Though the problem with Gym Razor, though, if I remember right, didn't you have to actually mutate to get that ability on Gym Razor? Or am I misremembering? Yeah, you have to actually mutate to get to destroy an artifact or enchantment. So, and if you don't mutate, it costs 4. So it's actually not quite as good as the raccoon. Raccoon's got Gym Razor's number. Let's see. Emberheart Challenger has prowess. Yeah, another good card, right? And if it gets targeted, you get to access to another card. So definitely. I don't trust fountain ports. It's a trick. I disagree. However, I do think that too many people are putting this into too many decks. The places I would play this is if you already have stuff that is making tokens, then sure, this is just a cheap way to draw cards, right? Like later in the game, you're like, great, I'll just pay 2 life, get rid of a token. And remember, this doesn't say creature token. So if you're playing something that has food, that has treasure, whatever, like this counts, right? So sacrifice token, definitely would play it in those decks. If I'm playing a token deck that cares or has triggers from tokens entering the battlefield, I might play one of these. I don't think I would play it if I had something that just cared about treasure. I would probably stay away from it there. If I'm playing a 2-color for sure, well, if I'm playing a 3-color deck for sure, I'm probably not playing this. 2 colors really depends on what the mana requirements are of the deck, because this is still a colorless land. While it does tap for mana, it is still colorless, and some decks do still have a pretty significant color requirement to cast stuff on time. So just being aware of that. But I think it does go into a reasonable number of decks. I just wouldn't get too crazy with it. Like, and you're not going to replace, like somebody said, like you play this over Merrick's. I don't think that's true. I think having to pay 3 and a life to get a 1/1 fish is tough compared to just paying 3 and no life. Now, admittedly, the fish can block. The Merrick's tokens can't. The Merrick's tokens have poison or whatever, toxic. You know, so there are some differences. So I could be wrong, though, in the long run. But right now, I don't think I'd do it. But yeah, I don't think this is a trap. I just think it's just people are trying to squeeze it into more decks than it belongs in, I think is the only issue there. But I think the card is actually still reasonable and playable. I just don't think most decks are going to, that even are playing it, are going to play more than 1, maybe 2 copies of it. Antonio Martinez says, hi, new here. I want to get into standard and saw your squirrel video. Is it worth starting with that deck, or is there a different recommendation? I would not start with the squirrel deck. I have a video coming out in about an hour and 20 minutes that I'll explain further. But there's several reasons I would not craft squirrels. Though, honestly, most of the decks generally are going to be fine. Like, if you want to play black-green, I think you still build a reasonable black-green deck. Mid-rangey stuff, I think, is fine if that's what you want to do. I think there's a lot of good cards there. You still got Glissa. You still got Shieldred. You have the Preachers. You still get the Deep Cavern Bats. I mean, you have all the quality removal. You still have the Dread Knight. Like, most of the parts you still want are still there. So like that deck's still fine, totally playable if you want to go ahead and build it. If you want to play black green, and then there's also still life gain stuff that cares about treasure or whatever. If you want to do that, I just don't think being squirrel centric is necessarily the way you need to go. Harvester of Misery and Temporal Lockdown will be all-stars for the first couple of weeks. Yeah, I expect you'll see a lot of those for sure. What happened to my boy? What happened here? Oop, whoa. I clicked a button on my screen I didn't need to click. There we go. That's much better than just looking at Fountain Port. Oh, boy. All right. But yeah, I again, if you're looking for cards that are overperformed, underperform, I have 2 videos coming out in about an hour and 20-ish now. So if you want to check those out, they'll answer a bunch of stuff. Because people always ask, like, what should I craft? What shouldn't I craft? I'm very careful that I'm not saying you necessarily should or shouldn't, but I give you reasons why I think they have or haven't performed the way they have. And you at least have all that information to make your decisions. But yeah, I do agree that Harvester of Misery and Temporal Lockdown are going to be in a lot of places early on. I don't think that's really a surprise. Those cards are both good. They deal with small creatures. I think it'll be interesting, too, to see which way the metagame develops, because you can also hit a lot of situations where the creatures, or the creature decks, also are like, cool, we're going to play more King Darien Extra Large 8th, right? We're going to play just more things in general that are pumping our teams, like the mouse or whatever that gives creatures +1/+1 or whatever, right? Then that automatically makes it to where stuff like the Harvester isn't as good, right? So we'll see how things develop for sure. Yeah, I haven't seen much Rats decks yet. I'm still messing with some ideas on those. I do think Rats still have potential to be pretty good. I just don't think... I feel like it needs some refinement based on the meta for which levers you can pull, but I think by the end of the season there should be at least a reasonable Rat deck. Antonio says, hey, PowrDragn, thanks for all the content covering Bloomburrow. Man, you are welcome, and honestly, I got wore out the last 2 weeks. Like, I literally had, I think we did 20 plus, like 23? We did, I think it was 23 decks, maybe 24, but at least 23 decks that were rotation-ready decks using existing cards. We did, I think, 10, did we do 8 or 10 videos that were just like deck techs on Bloomburrow? We did 10 days of the Bloomburrow preview season. I did 2 videos with Dev of like our sleepers and winners or whatever, basically out of the set, right? And I feel like there was something else I did, plus the live streams on top of it. Like, yeah, I'm glad y'all enjoyed it, because, man, I genuinely got worn out making stuff for Bloomburrow. What deck gets hit the most? The lands deck or Esper midrange with the set slaving? Both. Like, I don't think it's a matter of one over the other. Like, they both take a hit. Like, I mean, the lands themselves serve dual purpose, right? Like getting multiple triggers and gaining life, which is what that deck wants. So losing that is big. But also, losing stuff like Rafine, you know, is a big hit to the Esper decks. Like, that card was super good and it just swung games by itself. So yeah, I would say both are pretty rough, honestly. If anything, I would say that at least Esper midrange has had other options already, and there's other ways you can go to build it. I think the lands deck sort of becomes a whole different deck for the most part. Like, I think you can still do stuff with lands in the graveyard and stuff, but the deck's going to look way different. I liked Gym Razor. This is from Pajaro Feliz. Says, I like Gym Razor, so I can understand why you like Scrap Shooter. Yeah, I think they're functionally different cards, but I see where people make the connection. That is one thing, too. Let me say this, and I've tried to mention this every preview season, but I always try to caution people from too quickly saying, this card is a version of X card, right? Because while they do have similar identities, right? Well, we're saying, in this case, Scrap Shooter versus Gym Razor, right? You're like, oh, okay, what's a 4/4? Destroys artifact enchantment. Cool. Has reach. Awesome. But Gym Razor has to be mutated to get the thing it wants. Otherwise, it's just a 4/4 with reach. And then it costs you more mana, right? Scrap Shooter can just be the creature for the 3 mana and still do the other thing, but comes with the downside of giving your opponent a card, right? So functionally, they will play differently in the environments that they're in Standard. So it's always good to be able to draw familiarity, so you kind of have an idea of what you're trying to do, but don't assume that the cards will always be the same or play the same in similar situations. My call for the first month of the new meta is Golgari midrange, mono red, Simic cookies to push the first wave of Bloomburrow aggro. I mean, those are all fine decks that people will play, yeah. I mean, they're all decks that already exist. You just swap, like, a couple of cards. Yeah. And honestly, you're more likely to see more of those than you are Bloomburrow stuff, at least for the first 72 hours, because people already have those decks and they don't have to craft, like, 4 to 6 cards. Whereas if they're building something with Bloomburrow stuff, they're going to need, like, at least half a deck. You know what I mean? So yeah, you're probably going to see more stuff that already exists. I would say even through the first week, or at least through Friday, payday for most people, you know, Friday, Saturday, when people are getting paid. Then you'll probably start seeing more stuff going into week 2 that are more Bloomburrow heavy. You think people are going to enjoy limited Bloomburrow? People are already telling me they are. I don't play much limited. I think I have something like 20 draft tokens in my arena account, but yeah, people that play limited already said they like it. Like, people coming back from pre-releases already say they like it. So yeah, I can't imagine why you wouldn't. And it is at least flexible, right? Because you have all the different 2-color creature combinations that could allow you to build 3-color decks, because there's enough crossover between stuff that keeps it at least variable. Do I have a video about getting into Standard? I don't think there's a real trick to getting into Standard. I think you just do. If there's a particular question you want to know about, sure, I could probably answer it. But I would also say I just have a general, like, strategy playlist. If you're ever just looking for, like, strategy tips and things to learn about the game or whatever, like, that's, you know, probably going to be better. But there's really no secret for Standard. I mean, especially right now, with Standard being a 3-year rotation, if you build anything that's Bloomburrow heavy, like, your cards are going to be Standard legal for 36 months. Or roughly, you know, somewhere between 34 months and 37 months, depending on where they drop the rotation that year. But generally, you're going to have 3 years, right? That you're not even going to have to worry about anything. So, yeah, there's not really a secret. It's just pick the deck you think fits your play style or that you have fun with or colors that you like, and then just build that. I mean, I know you're probably wishing there was, like, some secret, but realistically, there's not really one. It's just kind of pick what you think is fun and then just go hit the ladder, or even not even play ladder. You play the play queue for a while, right, and get comfortable. Flea says, yes, I totally agree. I think I understand it myself, but I appreciate you saying it. It's easier to retain things when you hear other people's opinion. Yeah, and you're talking about, you know, making the comparison between cards, I assume. Yeah, it's a really common thing. And I get it, right? Humans want heuristics, right? They want a thing they can go to that says, I know this thing, so I need to apply this thing in this situation. And actually, okay, I'm going to take a side quest here for a second with everybody, if you ride along with me. But I'm working, and I'm consulting with a couple of editors right now. And because I have a series of videos I've scripted out and I've started recording for how to build, I think I'm just calling it, like, how to build winning build winning decks, right? Is what I'm doing. But it's basically like a whole series of, like, choosing the strategy and selecting the cards and, you know, understanding the meta and, you know, all this stuff. And I'm partially doing it because I know it's a thing people ask a lot about or whatever. But I also know the reality of, while I'm going through this, that whatever I tell you in this series of videos, the next time you go to build a deck, it's going to be the exception to the rule. And that's the hardest part about a game like Magic when you're deck building, right? You almost need an understanding of just how things work more than how to do, if that makes sense, right? Because even using Bloomburrow as an example, we have different aggro decks that don't necessarily follow the any singular heuristic between them, right? Because if you're playing something like Otters, you're probably going fewer on the creatures than you would in a normal heuristic built aggro deck because you need a lot of spells to trigger all the prowess stuff, right? If you're doing something with raccoons, you're kind of just building on a curve, but even that's not totally true because you need to make sure you can hit 4 mana cast, each turn to trigger expend. So that changes how you want to build stuff, right? You have a few more expensive things and you're playing some different choices of removal or whatever to make sure you hit that number. So like even among the creature decks, it would be hard to say like this is the heuristic for when you're building this type of deck. However, if you have an understanding of how the turns progress and how you're likely to deal with opposing creatures or whatever, you can then make certain decisions into, okay, well, I'd rather have this removal instead of this one because the deck's trying to do this thing, right? Other than just, I just need removal. So, like, that's the thing that makes that type of series hard because I think the base level is people just want something they can turn to give them a baseline. And to be fair, if you have the baseline, you at least won't build trash, right? Like, at its core, if you have that understanding, you at least won't build garbage. But to kind of get to the next level, you need just a deeper understanding other than just, I'm playing an aggro deck, so I need to have this kind of curve, right? And I've literally had people come on videos and say, like, there's no way this deck works. It doesn't have a curve to be an aggro deck. And I'm like, but you watched me play it. Like, people watched me play it on stream, right? Not every aggro deck has to fit a certain curve. Not every aggro deck is trying to win the exact same way. It's just winning by turn 5 or 6 with your creatures, right? It could be a bunch of different ways. But I also get it. If that person's heuristic is, this can't be an aggro deck because it doesn't have, I don't know, let's say 8 1-drops and 8 or 10 2-drops and whatever, right? Then that doesn't make sense to them. And that makes sense because that's how they've learned. All right. But anyway, that's the thing I'm working on. Just kind of felt like it fit the conversation, so I sort of just threw it in there. Let's see. Yeah, like proper sequencing and things. Oh, yeah. That's a whole different thing. Like, strategy on Magic can go as deep as you want it to go, for sure. And that's just a thing that comes with time that people figure out. And I think that's also a tough thing when... If I see some... Like, we see it in the comments, right, in videos, where somebody goes, man, I played this deck 20 times in a row. I didn't even win a game. And literally the next comment is, dude, I finally got to platinum for the first time. Thanks. Right? Like, it's like you're playing the exact same list you copied off the video. Right? So some of it is how comfortable is the player with that style of deck? Right? Are they making the same decisions in tight situations? Do they understand how to hold on to some things before, after sweepers maybe, or whatever? There's a bunch of things that affect the outcome of a game, and just the random RNG of, like, you might have got bad luck in drawing row cards. You might have ran up against better opponents or worse deck matchups or who knows what. And you have to learn to navigate all that, right? That's why we play the game. Like, that's why you see even the best players still make mistakes. Like, and to be honest, let's be real, in every single game on planet Earth, players think they're better than they actually are. That's just it. Like, being real. But it's a thing that there's so much to learn, honestly, all the time. What do you think? Why do you think people sleep on Darkstar Augur? Who's sleeping on it? Like, for real, who's sleeping on it? Like, everybody said that card's playable that I know of. People played it. Everybody who played Bats played it in this streamer event. Nobody's sleeping on Darkstar Augur. I mean, we're not saying it's like out of 10 stars or 10 rating, I'm not giving it a 9.5, but it's a solid like 6.5, 7. If you're building a deck that can gain the life and it's not going to kill you, then yeah, you go for it. Let's see. Also, the other thing is too, Dims here says, yeah, like if you made a specific to-do list of sorts, it'd be irrelevant in like 2 days or even throughout the day potentially. Yeah, if you're talking about, building, if I gave somebody like, this is how you build decks for Bloomburrow, right? Like, I guess if I gave you like a specific, like, well, even then there's like 4 ways to probably build mice. I was going to say like even using that as an example, but yeah, even that wouldn't be 100% accurate. Yeah, there's just a lot of variables. There's a lot of variables. The other thing too is the other thing that's hard for people is when people tend to skip parts of the video where you're also explaining stuff about the deck, right? Because a lot of times people will skip the opener, right? Where I'm saying specifically, I'm playing this card for this reason, or I'm trying to see how this thing works, or we're only building this deck so we can build around a particular card. And, in their comments like, I don't know why you're playing this. This is just worse than this other card. It's like, well, yeah, we know that other card's good. Like, we're like, literally at this point, like when you go look at my stuff in Moxfield, my OTJ folder, I think has 115 decks in it. Like, actually, no, I think it's more than that, actually. I think I have that number wrong. Hold on a second. Let me go look. Because I think it's got to be bigger than that. I have to be looking at that wrong, right? It has, I got to go up a level. No, it's right. It has 108 because I moved the other decks to another folder as I was starting to build stuff for the new season. So yeah, Thunder Junction so far was the second largest quantity of decks I've built. 108 for the season. I had 132 for March of the Machine season. Like, it's sometimes we're just trying cards out. Or we're just going, okay, this meta is this thing. Let's see if we can build a strategy this way with these cards. All right? Because you got to make content, right? At some point. With me putting up videos literally every day, like you're going to be playing some cards that are lesser than other cards. But I note that in the video. That's right. We're just trying for interaction so we can learn stuff. Not everything in videos is necessarily about. And the other thing too is, I guess I want to say, I'm also not making videos for people to constantly just copy the deck list. I know people will if they enjoy them, and that's great. Glad I helped you find something you want to play. But that's not necessarily the goal of video. It's for people to be able to learn, whether that's from the construction of the deck, from the games you watch, from my mistakes, whatever. So you now have a bigger knowledge base when you move forward. Not just, this is the best deck you need to be playing. Hell, there's sometimes we didn't do well with the deck, but I'm like, I already know what'll fix it. We can play these things. Or I've done extremely well with the deck, and I've told you in the video, I probably wouldn't rush out to build this just yet because I'm pretty sure we got lucky for these 3 different reasons in these different games, right? So this deck probably should have had 3 more losses than it had, or whatever the case may be. But people also don't want to watch that. So I don't necessarily feel bad if people don't get the result they want when I'm telling you in the video the thing that matches your results. That's another thing that happens. Let's see. So Dim says, so it's more about understanding the game entirely, which is the key to playing the game or a sport compelled. Yeah, absolutely. Samuel Rockwell says, so many of the new creature types involve small, fast creatures that can overwhelm you by turn 3, 4, or 5. What are good starts to combat it? I mean, just a typical removal. And reasonable creatures. And life gain. All the stuff that's always existed, right? Like, cut down's still a thing. Go for the throat, still a thing. Like, shock, lightning strike, like those cards all still work. I mean, like they're all gonna keep being played. So I mean, creatures with first strike or death touch, right? We have plenty of those still. So like, yeah, there's no real secret. It's just play like you normally would. Any strategy you've been using against mono red probably still works against most things. I'm gonna try Cash Grab in the Golgari Dread Popper decks. That's probably a good popper card. Yeah. Felice says, interesting. I have reviewed articles on, for example, how to build a control deck. The problem is that they are written with references to cards I have never seen. I don't know if these articles have been that useful to me. Yeah, that's kind of the problem. Like, no matter what video you make, and the problem is the better the video is, the more production is going to go into it. So you can't just like keep updating it every rotation, right? Because it's just a lot of time and money. So that's the other issue when I'm trying to make this series of videos is trying to use cards more as a reference than for the actual card and we're building around it. So I'm trying to stay away from that as well, which is also what's making scripting very hard because again, people want to have very specific examples other than like the concept of this style of card, whatever. So it's a catch-22, right? It makes it really, really difficult to do that. That's why you don't see a lot of those videos, honestly. But you're right? If you go look at something that's been that type of video that was made 3-4 years ago, people may even talk about the game differently, right? Because the game progresses over time. So, maybe it's something that needs to be updated every 5 years or something. But yeah, the way they talk about the games differently, and then when they're using certain examples, it can also be somewhat distracting because again, like you're saying, you don't know the cards, you don't understand how they interact. And then when you go to deck build, it's like, well, the card you're putting in obviously doesn't do what that card does, but like it's kind of the same, so is that good enough? Right? And that's where it's trying to create the understanding of the how overall than or really the why more than the actual like which card more than anything else. Biddy Jr. says, hey, PowrDragn, hope tonight's found you well. Just a quick question. Which card has been your favorite to use during the streamer event? You're looking at it, buddy, Scrap Shooter. That's why it's dominating my screen space. I've only heard good things for a creature with a good effect about Darkstar. Oh, yeah, talking about Darkstar Augur. Yeah, everybody still likes that card. Antonio says, thanks for what you do. I'll have to check out your videos tomorrow morning. Oh, please do. Please do. This is the first time I've done these two types of videos, which go live in an hour. Overperformers that are probably good to craft, underperformers that are probably bad to craft. So, check those out. Let me know what you think, genuinely, because I haven't done those type of videos. If people like them, maybe I'll do them for each set. I don't know. Poker Brawl says, I have friends who skip past all the dialogue to watch the action sequences in movies, and they say the movies suck. Sounds like the folks who skip the opening of your... that's true, too, right? If you don't have context, certain things don't make sense. By the way, okay, speaking of that, do y'all remember this TV series that came out on Netflix? It was like a year ago. And it was 6 parts, and each one was labeled a different color. But each account who went to watch it got the videos, the series served to them in a different order. The only thing that was the same, I think, was the ending. I think that was the only thing that was the same for everybody. But the other 5 episodes were all delivered differently. And I can't remember what that was called. But I thought it was such a cool idea because it literally changes the way people think about what they're seeing, right? Because like one of the guys in the movie the series was this kind of like jerk and pompous, and he was like overprotective of his woman and all this stuff. So if you saw that early, you kind of have this negative opinion of him as the rest of the series roll out, right? But if you see, and spoilers here, I guess, but if you see the negative things that happened to him early in that particular episode, you go like, oh, this dude wasn't even doing anything. That sucks, right? And then you kind of have a sympathetic feel toward him as the rest of the stuff develops. And it takes you longer to develop that dislike of him because you might not see one of the real problematic episodes to the one right before the end, And I thought that was really cool as a social experiment to just see how people talked about it or whatever. And of course, there were people going, well, the right way to watch it is you watch blue, then pink, then yellow. Like, no, that defeats the purpose of the exercise. Like, we all know after watching it, like, what reasonably could be the order within the timeline of the show. But the fact that they show you the sequences, and the way they do this is, one of them's like 3 years ago, where like certain characters met up and you're finding out how that connection is. And then another one's like, 2 months ago or whatever. And then one's like last week, and this was like the day before the heist or whatever, right? So depending on how you see it, it tells a different story. And I thought that was really cool because it's something I knew, but you hadn't really seen somebody try it and put it into practice, and it actually turned out really neat. But I thought that was really cool. If you hadn't seen it, you should watch it. It's actually a really interesting thing. Dims is saying everything I'm describing is exactly why he play and watch content related to Magic. I totally get it. I tell people all the time, you shouldn't be watching content for what deck is better, right? Like, you should be watching content to understand why a deck is winning or losing, right? You should understand the decisions the creator made, how that affected the outcome of the game. What decisions would you have made, and would those have possibly gotten you the same outcome, right? You learn way more looking at it that way than you do just like getting to the end and going like, oh, this deck was only 4-3. I don't care. I don't want to play it. When the reality is those 3 losses could have been for a variety of things that could have potentially been wins. Or some number of those wins, when you look at a deck that's like 7-1, could have been opponent getting unlucky or getting mana screwed or whatever, that could have easily been losses, right? But then you go and play it and get a different result, and it's like, well, you didn't really take in the video. You were just more worried about watching 2 games and then watching the results. to the point that I even know how people view videos, that I'll show all the games, but I structure the games in a certain way throughout the video to match the behavior of the people watching the videos. So, like, that's a fun thing, too. Let's see. Asavero says, you nailed it with people ignoring reasoning. There's a reason why people switch cards up. There's a meta call. There's playstyles. There's other variables to consider. It's wise to learn why a person is playing a card and how they use it. Absolutely. Gerald Taylor says, appreciate you still producing content and decks that we can pick up, play, and learn with. You are very welcome. Any thoughts on Teamer prowess? I'm considered trying to move towards Is It prowess. I mean, I would just say, how much are you getting out of the green? Because it's probably some combination of giant growth, audacity, the guy that has the red draw 2 adventure, right? Those are all reasonable cards. So, I mean, if it makes sense and your mana supports it, those are really good cards. It's just, how aggressive do you want to be, and what are you playing over really the giant growth and the audacity more than anything else? If you feel you have reasonable placements and it's easier on your mana and you don't have to craft as many cards to do it, then cool. If you think the other gives you more of an advantage and those cards hit harder and you're trying to be more aggressive, then go the Teamer route. Did you try out any combos with Storm Splitter? No, because Storm Splitter is not a great Magic card. Spoiler, it's in one of my videos that's launching in about 1 hour, and it will explain why. But, I mean, can you combo with Storm Splitter? Sure, but it takes a lot of work. And the creature itself isn't the best creature. Oh, Poker Bro says Kaleidoscope. Yeah, that was the name of the show. Absolutely. Great show, honestly. Actors were all really good in it. It's sad that they did leave it slightly open-ended that they could do another one, but I don't know if they will. It's like the M. Night Shyamalan thing, right? Like, once you do the thing, now everybody's like expecting a certain thing, so I don't know if the second season would even have the similar effect. Because, like, remember with M. Night Shyamalan, everybody went and saw, like, the whatever it was, I See Dead People or whatever, like with Bruce Willis, right? And people were stunned, and, like, it was, like, totally different and whatever, and this is cool. But then, like, now every time he does a movie, if it doesn't have the crazy twist, people get mad about it, but they're also really looking for the crazy twist now, right? So it's kind of like, eh. Like, you know who else is starting to run into that? The dude that wrote Get Out, right? Jordan Peele, right? He's starting to be that way, right? When you see one of his movies, people have this, like, super high bar of expectation. Even though the movie might still be pretty good, it's like, well, it didn't do this, or it didn't surprise me like this, or this meaning wasn't so deep compared to this thing, you know, like, so that's a tough thing. And I think that's kind of what you run into with Kaleidoscope, is it was such a different concept to be done that I don't know if people are excited about it the second time. I would watch, because I thought the characters were interesting and the way they ended the story was cool. So, like, I would watch, but I don't know if it would be as big the second time. Let's see, how strong do you think mono green will be this set? I'm currently 69% with mono green over 70 games. I suspect it can be decent tier 2 list, maybe. Well, if you're already doing well with it, why would it significantly change? Like, there's nothing that's going to be particularly detrimental, and it picked up some good parts, right? You got a 2 mana 3/3, you got a 3 mana 4/4, you got ways to get rid of artifacts, enchantments on creatures. You got a fight spell that also gives you trample now. Like, yeah, I think the deck's more than fine. I will definitely think that deck can still win, for sure. Some people have suggested Gruul Prowess. I'll have to F around and find out. Yeah, Gruul Prowess is definitely a deck. I mean, people have been playing it in tournaments. Like, it's been a real thing. So, yeah, if you haven't checked it out, definitely look it up. There's a bunch of, I mean, there's a bunch of deck lists. They're all playing some combination of, like, 12 spells, just plus or minus a few here or there. But yeah, those decks are definitely good. I don't know if they got any particular new toys, thinking about it. Yeah, you kind of did get a new prowess guide that lets you get access to another card. The mouse, right? The 2/2. So, like, that's probably playable in there. But I don't know if it got too many other things you'd need to craft. Burrow says, I definitely enjoyed Kaleidoscope for the social experiment aspect, but I'm not sure it delivered on its promise. See, I disagree. I think it was actually pretty good. But again, I think it's just what your expectations of it were. I mean, the ending was what we expected it was going to be, right? After you saw it all set up, like the ending just kind of had to be the ending, except for like again the absolute very end, like the last 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes, just because they give themselves an out if they want to do a season 2, right? But that's kind of the only reason. Everything else, I thought, like all the characters got what was justified. The ones who got screwed over deserved to get screwed over. The ones who got rewarded deserved to get rewarded. So like I didn't have a problem with any of that. Magic Craig says, I think the set is silly. Raccoons, frogs, rabbit, Sarah is just ridiculous. Come on, Watsy. Yeah, you're in the minority on that, friend. Like every retailer I talk to on a regular basis, every distributor friend I talk to, they've all been selling tons of it. But here's the thing. Like, we've had raccoons in Magic. We've had frogs in Magic. We've had rabbits in Magic. Like, this isn't that weird. Hell, we've had mice in Magic. Like, bats. Like, all these things already exist. So it's not really, like, for some reason, the few people I have seen that have wanted to take offense with it, you're, I guess, somehow being mad because they're the focus this time? But I mean, even in current standard, like, yeah, squirrels too, right? Like, we've had all these things. Like, they're not new. So I'm not even sure what the upset or frustration is because, like, I was about to say, I don't know, you don't like the art style, but hell, we've had otters and stuff too. And, like, that's been fine. So I don't really understand. Like, and we're playing a fantasy game. No, but the thing is, every single set has small creatures and big creatures. Even this set has some big creatures. Hell, I got one on the screen. There's a 4/4. There's 4/5s. There's the 6/5 Maha. There's the 6/6 Igra. There's the 5/5. What is it called? The Dragon Hawk or whatever, right? Like that happens every set. Like this really isn't. If you go look, this isn't significantly different than most other Magic sets. It's really not. Like. It can seem that way because we're looking at it that way because there's more cohesiveness among the small creatures, so they're being spotlighted more, but it's not significantly different. Were there any new creature types introduced in this set? Weasel, I think, is a new creature type, but I think everything else already existed. A 3/3 rabbit doesn't seem as significant as a 3/3 human or bear. I don't even know how that makes sense. Like, it's a 3/3 creature. Like, is a 3/3 werewolf mean more? I mean, like, I don't... Like, is a 3/3 turtle more significant than a 3/3 human? Like, the cards don't scale based on power and toughness. Otherwise, we'd have no way to represent, like, a 1/1 mouse or a 1/1 rats. Right? Like, that doesn't make sense. If we have the universe beyond, what's the problem with Bloomburrow? Well, that's also true. But that's a different discussion for people. Oh, that's true. There's a skunk. There probably hasn't been a skunk before. That's a good catch. A lot of people prefer this Redwall style fantasy over detectives or cowboys. Yeah, and that's the reality, right? Here, that's a good point, Terrell, that should be referenced, right? There are obviously a lot of people who really do like this. Will there be some percentage of people that don't like it? Absolutely. But that doesn't make it bad, right? The same way that we're going to do Duskmourn, and I already have friends that are super into horror movies and horror culture or whatever. They're excited about it. I'm going to care less. I'll play with it because it's Magic cards and I make content and whatever. But, I don't know. Horror stuff is just horror stuff. Like, real talk, it's mostly just people being dumb in a bunch of movies. Like, just being real about it. Like, I told friends one day, I still remember this conversation, when we were watching the Amityville Horror, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. If the house is talking, just leave. And they're like, well, it has your stuff in there. Like, the house can have the stuff. Hell, I don't care. Well, what if your woman's in there? She knows better. We're both heading for the door. Like, I don't know, like, how this is even a movie. You know what I mean? Like, but people love that. I get it. So people are going to be into that set. The same way some people like the whole... 1930s, 40s feel for, like, New Capenna, and that was a thing for people. Like, having something for everyone is cool. And if the certain set isn't your flavor, then just pick up the singles you need and maybe take a break if it's not your jam. And then when the next set comes in and it's your jam, go ahead and pick that up. Nothing wrong with that. Like, it's kind of the same way. Like, and just like Tara was saying, some people didn't like the cowboy, the Old West motif. I thought it was pretty cool. So I goofed around with it, made some more content, even wore like a goofy hat. I still have it sitting on the shelf over here, right? And it was fun, but some people didn't dig that either. Some people were super excited when the Phyrexians came back. I kind of went like, all right, more Phyrexians, sure. The cards were neat, so I played with them. But, you know, different things are going to appeal to different people. I don't think it necessarily makes it bad. It just means there's a lot of different choices for us to play things in Magic is all. It's the trope of anthropomorphic genres, small creatures against insurmountable odds, but that's literally what we have in Magic. We have had whole creature decks based around rats. We've had rabbits before. We've had squirrels before. Like, none of this is different. Hell, some of them are some of the most popular commanders in like Chitterfang and stuff. Chatterfang, right? Like, eh. So, is a Johnny still a lion person like Lion-O from Thundercats, or is he like a cute kitten now? You know, we didn't get that, and I was curious if they were going to do that with the inserts of the Planeswalkers we were doing. But however, I have one last sneaky holdout that there will be, because what people don't realize is sometimes in secret layers there's an extra card that isn't listed. It's just a bonus card that gets put into the secret layers when you buy them. They could make a Johnny that card. And that would be interesting. I don't think he necessarily becomes a lion person, though. My guess is he would probably just become a large, like, predatory style four-legged lion, if I were guessing. The more I thought about it. Or some type of other big cat beast, right? Because he's already larger than everybody else. He obviously is more powerful. He's obviously a lion. So he'd probably just become some big four-legged mega lion, which what would be considered a predator on Bloomburrow, but, you know, he is who he is, so he's probably not going to be a predator. What kind of tech do you think would be your first build? I don't even have a guess. I will figure that out as I crack cards. Generally, what I do is I just crack my cards. I have a bunch of deck lists already in there. The ones that I don't have to craft anything for immediately become the first round of cards. So it could be anything. Is the argument that Bloomburrow creatures in the world of, say, Ravnica would be tiny and therefore wouldn't have a power toughness they have? But they do. Like, that's the thing. Like, we've seen that in other sets already. Also, I don't know how many kindred or typals will hold up with no mixing of humans or vampires, etc. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like, what does future standard look like, right? The thing that's good about this is because each of the different creature types already exist in Magic, it's not unreal for us to get into a world where, like, one of those can show up in each of the next few sets, right? Like, Duskmourn having some number of rats, for example, actually makes sense, because there's a lot of creepy back alleys and other things and whatever, and basements or whatever that have rats in it, right? So we could just get some more rats in Duskmourn, possibly. And that would be totally fitting. Probably not going to get squirrels, rabbits, whatever, right? But something related to those could also appear in Foundations in November, right? Like, that could be a thing. And we get some cards there that would also be standard legal for the entire time that Bloomburrow is standard legal. So you get a few extra cards later on that could help boost you up if they started falling off a little bit. So depending on how they laid out the next couple of years worth of sets, there could still be some reasonable tools even without having to mix in humans and stuff. Though, there are some humans, like our boy King Darien Extra Large the 8th, that does support some of the token strategies, so something to think about. I don't think they aim to make the set scary. That falls under Innistrad-like sets. This is aimed at to get younger people to cater to different tastes. Yeah, that's totally fair. Around how many basic lands do decks tend to play with Fable Passage? It's going to depend on the deck, truly. There's really not a set number, right? If you're doing 3 colors, you may not even be able to squeeze in that many Fable Passages, right? Because you want more multicolor lands. Even if you're doing 2 colors, it's like, how much color requirement do you have? How fast are you trying to go? Because, your early land's going to be tapped, not untapped, so you may not even play Fable Passages, right? Because you're trying to hit 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, right? You don't want to have Fable Passages coming up as 2 of your first 3 lands or something. So yeah, there's no real answer. It's gonna be deck dependent for sure. Obviously, you're playing monocolor, you can just play however many and just play your Fable Passages. And it's like a freebie, you know. So go for it. Hey, you're laughing at me saying I headed for the door, but Amityville Horror, but I ain't getting got by a talking house. I'll tell you that right now. Like I've already said, if like I'd be typical black dude in a movie. Like either I'm first one gone, either you kill me or I'm leaving, or I'm lasting all the way through the whole thing. Like there's only 2 options for me. MTG is becoming less of a game with its own story and more of an environment setting mechanic system. Of sorts. I think there's always going to be the underlying story, which is what Bloomburrow, Dustmore, whatever, always going to be part of, right? They're carrying a story across things. And I think that's going to be a thing always. I think that's something I want. It also allows them as a company to have stuff that's proprietary. That's the biggest thing about all this stuff. When you talk about art, story, whatever, as much as people say, oh, it's to make sure you sell cards or whatever, like that's part of it, but it's also to just keep ownership of an IP. So that's always going to exist. Like, just business is business. That's why people are like worried about Wizards going to AI art, whatever. That's not going to be a thing because they can't own AI art. Now, at some point in the future, if laws change for some reason, somehow you can own AI art, then maybe. But realistically, it's not their appeal. You get original art. You get to meet these artists at events. Like, that's a draw for people. Like, there's too much money in having actual art and stuff and having your own actual story. Like, there's too much of a business aspect to it that won't ever go away. Now, will we continue to have other sets and other IPs brought in? Absolutely. But, yeah, the core standard 4 will probably almost always be proprietary if I were to guess. Though I do think there is a world where you could make, let's say next year, a Final Fantasy set or a Marvel set that could be built to be standard legal. I think that is possible and something they can do. Now, will they? I don't know if it's in their strategy to do it, but I think it is possible. The best horror movies disguise the plot holes well enough that you don't notice the plot holes until the movie's over. I mean, I guess. For me, the plot hole is literally like, just leave, but you can't. Like, a matter of fact, I saw this trailer because I just went to see Wolverine and Deadpool last night. There's a new Aliens movie coming, and it comes out like in 2 weeks or something. Like, it's really soon. Romulus, I think is what it's called. But it's literally people like, let's go search around this ship where apparently everybody's dead and we're hearing weird sounds. And I'm like, why are we doing this? And then they jump into this thing where they just saw something in the distance jump into the same water they're in. And then the dude's like acting weird. The stuff's moving around like, I think there's something in the water. Then the people just stare at him. Like, what do you mean? There's something in the water. Dude, there's something in the water. And then they start getting their faces eaten by these aliens or whatever. And I'm like, why? This is like the same thing every Aliens movie. But I get it. People love the Aliens movie. They love the concept of the things in space. Like, you have to just suspend disbelief to enjoy the movies. And that's okay. I think the only 2 horror movies I would say in the last, a long time, probably the last like 12 years or something, that I've seen that I would say I realistically enjoyed because of how the characters treated stuff was Skeleton Key, which is a cool movie about this woman who becomes a caretaker for an older woman in like deep Louisiana. And then you find out there's all this other stuff around her and, she's being set up by these, I don't know, people, spirits, whatever you want to call them. Like, it's a whole deep thing, but the character itself is at least she's making reasonable decisions based on the information available, And then, what was the other one? Oh, it was one of the what was that movie? Is not the Blair Witch. What was it? Paranormal Activity, I think. It was one of those movies. Maybe like the 4th one. But like, it starts out with you're following a guy who I think he's married into the family that I guess in the overarching story of the series, the way I understood it from watching it is like their family is connected to these like spirits or witches or something or whatever. So he's kind of married into this, but doesn't really know all the stuff that's going down. But he sees some things around the house and like whatever. So he starts doing like real stuff to try to make sure he's not crazy and not just seeing things. So he's like setting up a camera on like an oscillating fan to go back and forth in the room to be able to see everything. Like, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, Now it sucks at the end that the dude still gets got. You know, spoilers. The movie's like I think 7 years old or something now, 8 years old. But like that was at least interesting because the character is doing things that make sense, and you as the viewer can see things and know that he's not crazy. But I was like, okay, cool, I can get with this. And it really wasn't even about blood and gore or whatever. It was more just like creepy stuff going on, and then you had a little bit of the gory stuff toward the end. But you had to have a payoff for the fans that I guess are fans of the Super Series. But yeah, generally, I think those are the only two. Everyone else I've watched get like halfway through, and I'm like, eh. Though, to be fair, I didn't watch Silent Place, and those two movies do look kind of creepy and cool. I mean, same thing. I'm sure there's going to be plot holes about how you can never just not make noise ever, but like conceptually, at least seem like cool movies. I like all the different themes, blah blah blah. Like, sure, Magic Craig, I get you. You don't like Bloomburrow. I'm not arguing. I'm not gonna try to convince you to like it. Like, nobody finds frogs, rabbits, whatever scary. They're not intended to be in this thing. Like, every monster that fights isn't scary. Hell, every human in the game is not scary. Some of them are like squires or innkeepers, literally. Like, like the game has all types of things. Not every creature is meant to be scary. Do, 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 do. Your pet theory is that Igra is a Johnny. Say it backwards. RG? I mean, I guess kind of. He's become more feral and angry because he can't use his axe. I mean, I could go with that as a fan theory. Why not? Yeah, story and world building definitely are always going to be trumped by gameplay and mechanics. Like that's literally every single game on the planet. Like there's just no way around that. Like if the game's good and the gameplay's good, the mechanics good, like story is always going to take a backseat. You got to have that first. Maybe people who don't like the whole forest animals only theme are worried, even if it's just an intuitive or unconscious level, that people of other genres will come and invade their gaming circles. In other words, nah, I don't think it's that. Some people just don't like the flavor of it. That's fine, though. I do like Scrap Shooter being about to hit temporary lockdown and high. Oh, yeah, it's definitely going to hit all that stuff. Oh, you're just laughing at my statements because you found my wording funny. Yeah, I'm definitely not one to just, keep my emotions in when it's necessary. Oh, Barry, thanks for the $10 super chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate your wisdom. Well, I appreciate you appreciating my wisdom. Genuinely. Like, for real. Like, and I'm not even going to lie, y'all. Like, after this last week, for as much effort as I put in making all the Bloomburrow stuff and all the streams and all the deck techs and whatever, like, I was so wore out that I saw that somebody left a $5 super thanks on a video. And I'm not even joking. Like, it was only $5, but I felt like the best $5. Like I think I responded to the person just saying, like, you have no idea how good this feels today. And it was just like, and I'm sure they're like, what's up with this guy? But like, just one of those, like, if y'all ever think that does not matter to us as creators, like, it really does. Like, and again, I know it's only $5. It's not going to make or break me either way. But like, it was just like at that point in the middle of me still like editing other videos and everything else, just saw that pop up. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. Like, just the acknowledgement was so nice. Yeah, I'm sure there's a little gatekeepiness. Like, the thing is, everybody openly, generally, like with all fandoms, like people like a certain thing and that becomes the thing and they want it to stay the thing. And anything that gets outside of their realm of what the thing is supposed to be is bad. That happens with a lot of stuff. We see it with comic books, we see it with Star Wars, we see it with the Marvel movies, whatever, right? We see it with everything. So that's to be expected. That's just human nature, and people get defensive and protective. Matter of fact, I was having this conversation in Discord earlier about how I actually kind of want my geek movies to be somewhat different than the source material, or else why do I need to watch it, right? But then there's other people that want it to be exactly the same, and that's why they're going to watch it. Like, for me, my example is I never saw Watchmen, right? Because I read the comics book multiple times, and everybody went to see it early told me it's exactly the same as comic except for the last, like, I think they said like 15 minutes of the movie. So I'm like, well, I don't want to pay for a thing that's exactly the same. But I do like seeing the reimagined stuff in the MCU because even stuff where, say, like Iron Man has, we don't get a Jarvis. Jarvis is now this like technological kind of being that Tony Stark has created or whatever, right? Like, so even seeing that is cool. Even though I don't get the interpersonal reactions that you normally get with Jarvis that you got in the comic books, like it made sense with modern technology and his intelligence, whatever, to have Jarvis be something different, right? And that was kind of cool. And some people didn't like that; they would have rather had the actual butler or whatever. But in hindsight, I also like the fact that it further differentiated him from being like Batman, right? Like he didn't just have a manservant around the house; he had like an actual piece of technology that was in his suit. It was his security system. It was all this other stuff. So like sometimes those things can play very well, just having differences to expose you to different things, and I think that's fine too. Event Horizon was great horror for being realistic. Yeah, I don't think I saw that one actually. Crew on Event Horizon couldn't escape. You even have a scene where Lawrence Fishburne's character tersely says, "We're leaving," before they start packing up. The monster doesn't let them leave, sure, but he was more than ready to get the hell out of there. See, he knew. He knew it was up. Like, sometimes you can't get away, but sure as hell better be trying. Extra Humor says, Bloomburrow looks cool, in my opinion. Yeah, I think so too. I like the fact that we get a little bit of different feel every once in a while. Keep doing what you do from Pinball Derek. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I didn't see the gift subs didn't pop up over here. Thank you so much for the gift subs. There were 5 of them. So, yeah, if you got one, give Pinball Derek a little bit of thank you there. Oh, man. All right. Whew. Well, we did longer than I thought we were going to do. We got about, 2 hours in on this stream? So that's pretty cool. We answered a lot of questions, though. There was a lot of stuff. I will take, if you have any Bloomburrow questions, I'll do a last round of questions that'll pop up if you have some. Otherwise, we're going to have 2 cool videos launching in 30 minutes. So I don't normally do these style of videos, but with us having all the information from the streamer event and having a bunch of stuff from pre-releases this weekend, I did one video of cards that overperformed that you will probably be safe crafting, cards that underperformed that I would recommend you do not craft immediately. I normally don't do these types of videos. I have some personal issues with putting them out there like that. But I know a lot of people ask me about those all the time, so I figured I'm just going to do it this time and see how y'all respond to them. So if you like them, obviously be sure to hit the like button on those videos. Also, leave a comment about what you did like, or even cards that you thought, might fit that video, to create some discussion possibly. But more importantly, if you know people that are concerned or are starting to play Arena or whatever, be sure to share those with people. One of the best things you can do is share them in your Facebook, for any creator, for any video. The best thing you can do is retweet the stuff on Twitter, on Threads, wherever you're putting stuff. If you have a Facebook group where it makes sense, share it there. If you have friends that want to know about a particular deck or why certain cards are good or bad that they're thinking about getting in right now, share those videos with them to save them some resources. Like, that's how you really spread the word about your favorite creators and really help them get that extra reach. Suarez says, this is really good. Like, opponent leyline binds or lockdowns, something you play this. Oh, you're talking about Scrap Shooter. Yeah, absolutely. I'm newly back into Magic. I haven't seen many such changes. Is there a possibility of a BLB sequel if it continues to generate as much excitement as it seems? I would say realistically that, and this is me just reading between the lines. This is total speculation, so this isn't something I've heard somewhere or whatever. I'm just piecing together parts. That I don't know if Wizards thought Bloomburrow was going to be as popular as it was. And because of the way that sets are printed, everything was already done for Bloomburrow well over a year ago. So for them to immediately jump into a sequel on Bloomburrow, like even if they started, let's say in June-ish, right? After they started seeing numbers come in and people talking about Bloomburrow and distributors already up in their pre-orders before we even had a bunch of stuff previewed, right? We still wouldn't get another Bloomburrow set at this point until 2026 at the earliest. So, and it'd probably be late 2026, probably early 2027. So could there be another one? Sure. Should there be? Probably, with how it's sold. You know, I think if you have any plane that sells very well and the fans enjoy it, and obviously retailers, distributors, whatever are making money on it, everybody's benefiting. So like you should do it again. But I don't think it'll be soon. I think it'll be at least 2 years. I think 2 years is probably the closest we've had return to the same plane after we left it. So you could probably get it in 2 years, but it might be 3 years. But yes, I do think we'll be back to Bloomburrow for sure. Will they even do it in 3 years? They might do it in 4 or 5 years, but I do think we'll go back to that plane for sure. Do I Sea Mustard says, do you think that giving the gift is worth it, or do you only want to give a gift on some cards? Here's the thing. If there's a card that you're going to kill that swings the game, whether that's them gaining life, cutting their mana back, getting some of your creatures back, whatever, giving them one card is always going to be worth the exchange, right? Especially if you're playing some type of aggro deck. Like, one, does that card really matter that much? Because it is just a random card. And the way decks are built, let's say especially against a control deck, a third or more of their deck is going to be lands anyway. So, sure. Like, are they even going to get a card that matters there? Possibly, yes, but the odds aren't insane. So you're going to give them the card no matter what. Like, because when else, realistically, like, are you going... I guess the other answer is this. Let's say you have your opponent's at 6 or 8 or whatever, and you've got 3 creature under your opponent's temporary lockdown. Are you not going to play Scrap Shooter because they're going to get a card? You know what I mean? Like, you're always going to give them a card. Like, there's zero... Unless, literally, they're down and they're empty-handed, maybe, and you're one creature, like, they're at 4 or less life, and you can just play Scrap Shooter and win next turn, then maybe that's the only time you probably don't give them a card. And even then, I might still... I'm, like, thinking about, I might still gamble on giving them a card. But realistically, maybe that's one of the rare situations where you don't give them a card. But if you're anywhere in the mid-game, you're probably giving them a card, I would think. Flip side to previous question, was MKM as unpopular as it seemed? There's still a ton of boxes at local game stores I've visited in a couple weeks. I've drafted it 2 weeks ago and I personally loved it. Here's the thing about that set. I think, how do I word this? Because I think mechanically the set was fine. And the cards, there's actually a fair amount of decent cards in that set. But I think it had a couple of things going against it. The first being that they set it on Ravnica. Because I believe 2 things happen there. One is that there's an expectation with Ravnica, right? That, like, my favorite guild is going to be a thing and that's going to matter. And you get a bunch of 2-color combination of things that are relevant and whatever. And that really wasn't the core of that set. Like, it was just set on there as a plane, but the guilds didn't really matter, right? And that's what people like about Ravnica. Historically, it's all about, hey, let me get some cool Boros stuff. Let me get some cool Azorius stuff, whatever, right? That wasn't really a thing. The other is, by setting it in Ravnica, you have an expectation of certain characters are going to be important there, right? The people that are way into their guilds and the history and the lore expect to see certain characters and whatever. And a lot of them didn't seem to really appear, and the ones that did were kind of just almost felt like they were there to say they were there, right? Because we're on Ravnica, but they weren't really relevant to anything. And then you have the issue of it being a murder mystery. And that's hard to do. And credit to them for trying. I think they should always be trying stuff. So I'm not taking knocks at R&D here. But it's hard to do within the scope of a card game. Right? Like, we kind of had to reveal the killer before people even got cards in their hands, really. Right? So that was already its first problem. And then, because it was in Ravnica with characters people know or whatever, like, they didn't commit to letting one of the main characters be the bad guy. Right? The killer ended up being a character that's technically three characters, and it was only one of the three. It wasn't even like the three conspired to do the thing, right? So we couldn't even commit to who was the actual villain. So that was the problem. I think if the set, and also the core main character, to me, should have just been like somebody from the Boros or Azorius guilds, right? But we made a new character to be the lead Sherlock Holmes or whatever of the set. And I think that would have been more fun if there would just been an existing character that maybe we'd read in the lore but hadn't gotten a card and they got to be like the lead character set. Would have been more rewarding, I think, for long-term players. But I've argued from the beginning that I think the set would have done better being set on New Capenna. I think there you could have the excuse of like, we're still in the film noir type stuff, right? We already know there's a bunch of crime families, so we could pin it on whoever we want, right? Those family crime lords already have a history, so it would be cool to let one of them be. Hell, Omnixilis being the killer could have been sweet. You know what I mean? Like, we could have just committed to that, and we could have killed off one of the other crime family bosses, and maybe Omnixilis paid off somebody from inside the family to kill them so they could usurp the other guy or whatever, right? And that, like, mob war type stuff. Like, that story would have been easier, I think, to sell and make a lot more sense, and it wouldn't have come with any type of expectations. I think that was the issue. So I think it was more the stuff around the set that didn't hit more than the cards in the set not hitting. To me, was the bigger issue. And then there was some stuff, too, like the invisible ink thing didn't really work because, I mean, you could just tell what was on the card without having a black light or whatever. So, like, just small. And again, I think it's cool that they tried it. So I don't want to sound like I'm like poo-pooing all their effort. Like, I think it's cool that they tried a new thing and a new style of story. I just think they were already kind of with the cards stacked against them out of the gate, personally. No, this doesn't need flash. If this had flash, it'd be too good for 3 mana. Totally unfamiliar with Ravnica. Okay, there you go. Well, now you got exposed to some puff. Yeah. So Ravnica, as a whole, is what they call the city of guilds, right? So it's basically a giant city. Like, obviously there's still water and whatever, but basically all the cities interlinks in one way or another. And then the city or the plane is broken down within various guilds within this giant city. So every 2-color combination has its own title. And it has its own style behind it. And, you know, like, Boros is like the military. And Azorius is like the Senate and the diplomats. And Gruul lives on, like, the outskirts or whatever. Right? Like, they all have a thing. And they all have their different characters and leaders and history and relationship with the other guilds and stuff like that. But he says, really enjoyed Innistrad, Midnight Hunt, and Crimson Vow, along with Murder's Carlar Manor. Yeah, and see, I think to some extent, the Innistrad stuff kind of fell into that same category, right? Actually, a good example is the previous iteration of Innistrad, I think really missed for people because when people go to Innistrad, there's that expectation of there's going to be werewolves and vampires and whatever, right? Like, that's what I'm here for. But when we went back to Innistrad the previous time, it was about a lot of Cthulhu-style horror, right? The body horror of, like, the Eldrazi taking over everything and whatever. And you really didn't feel like you were in Innistrad. It just felt like another part of the Eldrazi story. And that didn't work for a lot of people. And I get it, like, because you were expecting a certain thing and you didn't get it. And I think when we went back to Innistrad this last time, while we did get at least a little bit more on, like, the werewolf front and everything else, it felt like people didn't really connect, I guess, with the whole wedding story and all that stuff going on, you know, which was sad because it had a pretty sicko trailer. Like, it was a pretty crazy sicko trailer for that one. But actually it had 2, like, both of those sets, because the one with the actual, like, wedding and the fountain or whatever was kind of crazy. And then the one with Arlen and the kids at the orphanage and stuff or whatever. Like, both of those were pretty crazy. So but I think those were closer. And I think if you were fans, like, at least had a feel. But they were trying to go a different route with it, right? Of just like, hey, we're trying to make a power couple in the vampires or whatever. And that was kind of like the centerpiece. And again, I don't know, maybe just the flavor was too different for some people, but it at least felt better than the other stuff. So I don't hate them. Again, don't hate them for trying. You got to figure out where the line is and what hits, and you got to go. Now, the downside is you did get like uh, whatever it is, that Midnight Hunt double feature that bombed and people were not happy about. So that kind of tainted the Innistrad experience for some people. So that's a little bit tough. But the set itself I thought was pretty cool and lots of sweet cards in it. Sea Mustard says, I'm a big Lorwyn guy. And Bloomburrow gives me the same sort of vibes. I could see that. Lorwyn had some almost like darker, I don't know, had some like darker fairy tale sort of theme to it. So I could see where you're going with that. Terrell says, I hope we get more schools or color pairs when we go back to Strixhaven or Arcavios. Like, that would probably be the idea, I would think, is that you just introduce the rival college, or whatever you want to call it. Oh, excuse me. I was almost coughing in y'all's ears. But yeah, we still have the 5 other color pairs to explore, so I assume you would get those the next time we go back. And then if we go back to Strixhaven a third time, we go ahead and then just start intermixing them and you get a bunch of crazy stuff. But we'll see. But all right, y'all, it's about 15 minutes until your 2 new favorite videos go live. Again, I just want to reiterate for everybody, this is a new thing. Haven't done it before. You're going to get 2 videos that launch at the same time. So you will see 2 different thumbnails. They are distinctly different. But one is 10 overperforming cards from Bloomburrow over the last, I guess I said week, but I guess it's really been like 5 days, 6 days by the time you watch the video. But basically, the 10 cards that have overperformed over the last week that you're probably safe to craft if you were thinking about them. And then the 10 cards in a separate video that have underperformed that I would hold off on crafting at the beginning of the season. The other interesting thing, too, is I don't want either video to be taken as the only 10 on either side that fit that category. These are the ones that, because I think we gauged a lot of, and I think I say this in one of the videos, but I think we gauged a lot of the cards pretty accurately. So some stuff is just performing as expected, you know, whether that's good or bad. So I just didn't include those because it wouldn't have made a lot of sense. I guess if I did 20 cards, then like maybe. But I didn't want it to be just cards you should craft or cards you shouldn't craft. Like, here, let me give you reasoning as to why some stuff is doing better than we thought and some stuff is doing worse than we thought to kind of help you out with that. Yeah, thanks for sharing the link there, Asaveru. Let's see. Negan Smith says, I'm hearing lots of opinions for the sets. So what was the reception of the Phyrexian Invasion sets? That one went over well, but not, I don't think really because of the particular mechanic, but just because people were excited to see more Phyrexians, because people like the Phyrexians. So, sure, you know, just one of those things. The same way there's a lot of people that love or hate Eldrazi. Like, it's polarizing. I'm on the hate Eldrazi side, but, you know, got other people on the love Eldrazi side. Hey, Jaffer coming in with 104 people here. Thanks for the raid there, old Jaffas. How's it going, man? Jaffer hunts bats. He probably does hunt bats. But yeah, welcome everybody. Be sure to follow Jaffer. Jaffer streams a lot, by the way. So if you're hanging around on Twitch and you want to be part of some streams, like, pay some love to Jaffer for real. Because, like, he's on a lot. Like, pretty much if I'm streaming or we're getting done with one of our podcasts with Magic Mics or whatever, I usually see Jaffer online. Toxic Matthew says, I'm here from the Jaffer raid, but I saw you on the Dev YouTube channel. Yeah, me and Dev have a plot to start doing even more content together. So you'll probably be seeing a little bit more of that. Jaffer says, well, I had to get Bat out of my family's house last night. Oh, that's what we're talking about. You know what's funny? How people freak out about it. I still remember there was a day when I was probably like I was real young, maybe like 3rd grade. I come, like, we're getting ready for school in the morning, and I just hear my mom scream bloody murder. Like, I thought literally she got attacked, right? So we, like, scrambled to the living room to the door, And she's just standing there, and we're like, "What's up?" Like she's just freaking out, like can't even talk. I'm like, "What the hell?" And there's this little, I mean, little bitty bat, y'all. It might have been like 2 inches tall, hanging upside down on the awning, like just not even like. Literally, I just got like the broom and I just like tapped it to wake it up, and it like flew off. Like I mean, like people freak out about bats, like it's crazy. Talk to me says I watched both your video and Dev's video. Thanks so much. Barry says I was happy to find some Rocket Raccoon sleeves for my build. Oh, that's actually pretty sweet. The reason I like the Eldrazi is when I pull them from a pack because they tend to be valuable. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Oh yeah, so okay, so those who came over with Jaffer stuff. For those you don't know, I'm PowrDragn. I literally put up content on YouTube every single day. So I'm actually at 4.5 years now of posting something every day on YouTube. So if you want some content and you like Standard, be sure to check that out. But we do like set reviews, card reviews. You know, I do a bunch of arena gameplay. Do some different commentary on things. Just kind of depends. Like recently, I even did a versus video comparing some different cards. But I bring this up because for those who don't know, in about 12 minutes, I, for the first time, am doing a new experiment. I have 2 videos going live at the same time. One is going to be, and this is what I was talking about as y'all rolled in here, but one is going to be 10 cards that have overperformed from Bloomburrow so far in Standard, and you're probably safe to craft those. And then the other is 10 cards that have underperformed from Bloomburrow so far, and you probably should hold off on crafting those at the beginning of the season. So I don't know how these videos are going to do. I would love for people to watch them. Let me know if they like them, dislike them. Is the presentation good or bad on that side of video? Do you even want that kind of information? I don't know, but I tried something new, and I'm putting it out there, and those are going to be 2 videos I'm launching today. At the same time, also, because I usually don't ever do that. So this is a giant experiment to see if this even works. So I hope y'all enjoy those. All right. Let's see. Oh, Terrell says, oh, wow, I thought you had slowed down about a year ago. No, like at some point, I'm going to not do stuff every day. I don't know when that is. Like, realistically, I didn't think I was even going to get to 4 years worth. Like, that's crazy. Like, 4 years is a long time. Like, it really is. So it's kind of insane, really. And my average isn't even 1 a day. My average is like 1 point, what is it, like 1.45 or something, according to YouTube. Like it's more than, it's almost 1.5 videos a day. So not even, so if you're following me, you're getting a lot of content, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. At some point, I probably will. I just don't know when that'll be. Realistically, I'm more likely to bring more people into the channel to help make some content for the channel and work out an agreement with them. And I might personally be on the face of a video every day less, but you would still be getting content every day, I think, in a perfect world. Let's see. Toxic May says, I'm going to definitely make a fecund green shell a thing. Oh, yeah. There's a few different builds for that thing I've been seeing. I even played one in the streamer event. It was super fun. I hope Biza is on that list. Biza is just a cool card in general. I expect you'll definitely see people playing with that. First live of yours I've ever caught. Well, thank you for stopping by, Tim Moss. I appreciate it. Gift a card. I don't get it yet. Oh, hey, Danny, hadn't seen you in a minute, bruh. I was just thinking about you the other day because I was thinking about like streamers I hadn't seen much since like people doing pandemic streaming. Yeah, gift a card is pretty simple. It's just whenever you cast the spell, you just determine if you want to gift the opponent a card or not. And then if it's a permanent and it comes into play, they'll get the card. If it's a spell, it has to resolve for them to get the card, basically. But some of them are like gift a tapped fish, gift a food token. Like they have different options, but this one just happens to be gift a card. Slivers has been relegated to Modern Masters and New Horizons sets going forward, probably. Yep, absolutely. Extra Humor says, appreciate you, love your videos. Thank you so much. Taro says, your grind is an inspiration. I need to get like you. No, you do not need to get like me. Like, the only reason I honestly believe I can do what I've done so far for 4 years is that I literally spent 16.5 years running an actual game store business, running conventions, doing after-school programs. So, like, I've had time for my both mental and physical well-being to get kind of into the mindset of being able to do that every day. But most people, it's probably unhealthy, to be honest. I would not recommend it. Like, there's a healthier schedule to keep for sure. How long have I been playing Magic? Since the beginning, since late '94, early '95. So I didn't get year one, but I'm in after that. When I went to buy cards, unlimited starters were still on the shelf next to revised starters. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Can you gift a hand and permanents? Oh no, it's just a one-off thing. It's just like it's either you do or you don't, and it's just one card, like or whatever the option is. It just says gift a card or it says gift a thing. Like you don't get the choice of what to gift. The card just tells you. You broke a collector box and got a raised foil Phineas. Oh, that was probably cool looking. Redacted says, I'm sure someone will come up with a Shieldred gift spam deck at some point. That would be kind of amusing. That's probably I don't know if it'll be that, but you'll probably play like two different sets of four that happen to give a gift, and it just works out with Shieldred, probably. Just started playing again, but playing MTG only. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, you play whatever makes sense for you. Gift will be called something else soon, I'm guessing. I don't know if it really needs to be, honestly. But maybe. I don't know. I won't ever say no. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. It's funny, I hated Aftermath Analysts, but may have to run them because I want to play Green Shell so bad. Oh, yeah, totally. You definitely run it if you're playing Green Shell. Does the gift have to be a permanent, or can you gift a hand card? No, it's literally, yeah, the cards tell you. You don't get a choice. Yeah, it's just another version of Kicker of sorts. I've been playing off and on since Ice Age. Hey, so yeah, you're an old schooler. You get it. I was starting around Thragtusk Restoration. Ooh, that's a rough time to start playing those decks. Oh, those were grindy. That was a hard time in Magic if you were new. Oh man. Nazareth says I started collecting and playing again a couple of months back, and my first commander deck I put together was Kali of the Vast. That's a pretty sweet commander, honestly. That's a fun one. That actually makes a lot of sense. And it's cool because it gives you enough variety that you don't have to like just play dragons or just play angels or whatever. Like you can get a little bit of each of them, and that's kind of fun. Remember Phantom decks? I do remember Phantom decks. I wouldn't say they were super good. That I don't remember them fondly, but I do remember them. Do you usually stream at this time? When I stream, it's kind of whenever. I stream in the evenings, I stream in the afternoons. It's generally kind of whatever fits my crazy post stuff every day schedule whenever I decide to stream. But I've only been doing a couple a month lately, though my plan is to increase that to at least once a week, probably a couple times a week over the next few months. It's good content creators like yourself that kept me interested in MTG since most of my mates have quit. And I get that, right? There are times where people are going to come and go in every hobby. I've seen it when I played disc golf with people. I've seen it with other card games. I've seen it with competitive gaming, video games, or whatever. Just people's lives change, their wants and needs change, their preferences change, right? Like the things they enjoy doing change over time. So sometimes you kind of end up having to find your connections elsewhere or make new play groups or whatever, and that's okay. It's just kind of the changing of life that happens. Do I remember Master Transmuter decks? No. I mean, I remember the card, but I don't remember the decks being super over the top. I played a guy this weekend who hadn't played in person in 8 years. He has an 8-year-old son who just started to play. I love multi. Oh, yeah. That's definitely a real thing now. Like, if you were going to, say, like the big conventions, like Gen Con, Dragon Con, whatever, over the last, I would say, 15 years, you will definitely have seen a trend of there being more families, more people pushing strollers around, like, people with kids on their backs, and some people walk around with their like 10, 12, 15-year-old kids, right? Things have definitely changed in the gaming community. Like, nerds like us have been around forever, but now we've been around long enough that they're starting families and whatever. And here's an interesting thing to think about, right? My generation, we had to explain like how Nintendo worked and what Dungeons and Dragons is and what's a Pokemon or whatever, right? But now you have people that have grown to adulthood that are 25-year-olds walking around that don't know a world where Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, D&D, all types of Nintendo, whatever, like, have always existed, right? They don't know a world where those things aren't there. They've never had to have it explained to them. They just walk into a store and they're like, see an IP that they recognize. They walk into a game store and there's always been tables. Oh, game stores didn't even exist when I was younger. You went and bought, like, Magic cards were being sold at bookstores. If you were lucky, you had a comic book shop you could go buy them at. Like, the world is just different for people now, and it's actually really cool to see. You haven't, Poker Bro says, I haven't played in person since 1995. Wow, that's a long time. Negan Smith says, this is definitely my dream, considering my wife and I play. I'm hopeful. I hope it works out for you, truly. Tim Moss says, do I think Commander will ever come to Magic the Gathering Arena? Here's an interesting thing. They made a statement. Man, this has been a while ago. Maybe it was around the beginning of the year or so, maybe late last year. But I do remember them saying something sometime in the last year that they were working to bring Commander to Arena. Also with that, trying to bring Pioneer to Arena as well. And they're supposedly working with, like, outside studios to get all the cards in there or whatever. Now, I do think the goal of getting Pioneer into Arena's a lot closer. Only because right now I don't see the vision. So I would say to get Arena, probably, if we get it, we're going to see effectively the 2.0 of the client, right? I think it'll still, most of the things will still function the same, graphics the same, whatever. But I think the layout will be different, so you can actually play 4 screens cleaner. Because right now, there's just not enough real estate to put 4 screens on there. Plus, having to click through all the lands people would have or whatever, and maybe there'd have to be things you could double click a battlefield and zoom in on it or something, or, you'd have to do something to make it more viable for 4 players. And I don't think that exists right now. So and again, this is my personal speculation. If I were guessing, if they really do intend to do it, the thing holding it up right now would probably be all the testing and complete overhaul you have to do on a UI, because I don't think it works in Arena 1.0 right now. Again, don't know if it's gonna happen, but they've at least said they want it to happen. Walden Books or B. Dalton? Yeah, those ain't even open anymore, but those are definitely places you bought Magic cards. I enjoy the local new pre-release drafts. Yeah, pre-releases are always fun for people. Extra Humor says, you and your friends are hooked. Hey, welcome to the rabbit hole. Oh, funny. Rabbit hole. But yeah, didn't even mean to tend to it. But you know what I'm saying. Odd writing info in the past. Commander can't be played on Arena client. It can't do 4 players. Yeah, really, at the time, honestly, I still, like, even if we did it, I don't think it would be a pleasant experience right now. Like, just being real, I just don't think that would work and be pleasant. But I do think if you rebuild the client, there is a way you could probably do it. Panthro, I'm old enough to remember when all the games started. I feel ya. I was there for the beginning of a lot of them. Asavir says, I don't think it would be called Commander, though. That's a lot of cards. No, I think you still call it Commander. I just think we understand that, cards will slowly get added to the client that you can include in your Commander decks. And we just slowly, over time, build that up to being closer to actual Commander over the years. But because obviously, I think for the number of cards you have to get in there, it's going to take an insanely long amount of time still. I mean, we're probably, just guessing, at best, if they were dedicating to it, probably still 5 years away from being able to have every single card in Arena, and probably even further than that. But yeah, I think you still call it Commander. That's what people want it to be. It's going to get referred to as Commander anyway, so just let it be. Danny says, wish you a good rest of the stream. Should eat something past lunchtime. Hey, oh, you're in Japan. Yeah, cool. Thanks for stopping by, dude. Long time no see. How about some MTG in Olympics in the future? They already put many new things. Never say never. I mean, we've had all kinds of stuff in the Olympics. We've got trampoline acrobatics. We've got break dancing. We've had ballroom dancing. Hell, I've heard they just did a vote for esports of some kind, supposedly being in the Olympics. So yeah, I mean it's possible. Yeah, I would say anything's possible. I wouldn't say no. I mean, Olympics they're open to trying things. That's for sure. Do. Oh, it looks like our videos have now gone live, y'all. I wasn't planning on staying on to those went live, but y'all got me. We had a bunch of good conversation though. Mm-mm-mm. Let's see. Wish Arena would come out on Xbox. Miss playing Xbox on my X. Yeah, I think the problem is it probably can in the future, but I don't know of how they wanted to handle the transactions and everything else. I think that was already a little bit of an issue on some different clients on phone, on mobile. And I think there's still some figuring out at this point what the next generation of consoles is even going to look like and what they're going to include. Bringing those formats to Arena is hard because of the price and the rarity of cards. I spent about $800 on Ginny Faye Cat's token. Yeah, but I mean, there's no way to really know. I mean, like, people will want their cards wherever they happen to be playing Magic and wherever it's convenient. And for some people, that is Arena. For other people, it's going to be paper. And that's okay. I think having more options is good because the sphere of influence of the game, as far as getting new players, reaching people where it's accessible to them, whatever, is still worth it at the end of the day. Arena do their own format names mostly because, oh yeah, for sure. That's definitely the main reason. It's mostly so you can keep them separate. But like, Commander just being everything that's available is fine to just say that's Commander. But, I mean, ultimately that's what we're going to call it anyway. Two-headed giant would be cool if you can, yeah, because you can figure out how Commander works. You can do two-headed giant. Why not? It's way too easy for people to pull their broken Brawl decks in Commander. After all, Paradox Engine is a Brawl legal. That's true. It is. Xbox had some really cool multiplayer game Magic games. Oh yeah, Duels of Planeswalkers was cool, and it actually increased. It was, I mean, it was on all platforms, but it was definitely one of the biggest reasons Magic had a boom during that period, like that 3-year stretch or whatever, that it was available on those consoles. Like it brought a lot of players in for sure. Do I think Landfall will be a bigger thing in Explorer? No bigger than it already is, I wouldn't say. Should I get the Bloomburrow RAL pack $49.99? I've gotten those before, but it doesn't complete the collection. Like, most aren't going to complete the collection. They're like really supercharged starter packs for the set is the best way to look at them. But I mean, if you want the stuff in it and the extras and the cosmetics, like, that's a fine value for what you're getting. At least Arena has decent free-to-play experience. I gave up on paper for now because of money. That's fair. That's totally fair. You know, and it's funny because, like, I think it's two ways to look at the Arena economy. Like, it is both expensive and non-expensive, depending on how you choose to interact with it. Because, like, on a daily basis, like, if I just hop onto Arena and just goof around and whatever, like, I get enough gold and experience rewards or whatever to get multiple things. Whereas most of the other card games I play, there's a lot where, like, I feel like I don't get any, like, ooh, I was talking about this the other way. The grind for me on Marvel Snap, oh, I have a hard time even playing it right now. Because, like, the time grind on Snap is so deep that I wish they had a paid option. Like, I wish I could just give them, like, I don't know, $50, $100, whatever, to just have all the cards from that current set. And I would play the game way more. But, like, that's not even an option on there. So it's really interesting how each game decides to monetize, whether it's just straight up money or time, right? Like, they're all going to have their thing. But all right, y'all. I think this is going to do it. I'm double checking right now, but I do have 2 videos live again, if y'all want to check those out. They are back-to-back posted. They just went up 7 minutes ago, and apparently some of you have already watching them. That's very, very good. So I appreciate that. But yeah, some really fun stuff. Again, if you want to know some stuff that you are probably safe crafting right now and some stuff you're probably not safe crafting right now, I have 2 videos right now you should check out if you're interested in that. If you're not, I get it. Maybe not your jam, but I try to do something new for everybody and provide something that's a little bit different. But yeah, I think this is gonna do it for me, folks. We've been streaming for what, 2.5 hours now, so this was a good later evening stream for a lot of people. So I hope you all enjoy it. Had some fun. Hope you learned something. Honestly, if you had questions, I hope y'all actually got what you needed out of the stream and got some questions answered, because that's always a big deal. But yeah, help me out. Go check out the videos, youtube.com/PowrDragn. As always, if you haven't followed me here, wherever you are watching, whether that's YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, you should do so, because I have content all the time, literally. And on YouTube especially. Go follow me, go subscribe on YouTube, because I have literal content every day. So if you want to keep up with Standard, you want to see different deck ideas, especially here in the early goings, I'm probably going to be trying all kinds of stuff in Bloomburrow. Like, there'll be a place you can see some stuff get tried, at least. Or, just be part of different questions. And if you want to support me directly, even better than supporting me just on Twitch or whatever, I have memberships on YouTube that you get bonus content, that you get to help decide what shows up on the channel, as well as, especially right now in the early going, if you want some privatized personal deck help, have some membership levels there as well, that you get access to a special form that comes right to me, and I can help you out with your decks directly. So try to give some different options to different people. But yeah, man, this was fun. We're going to have to do this again. Maybe we'll come back and we'll do a follow-up, see what we learned after the first week of Bloomburrow being Standard legal, how we feel about it. But yeah, let's see what we got going on. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, this was videos, and like I said, there'll be the regular scheduled content over the next few days. But I'm going to work on some different ideas. There's going to be some fun stuff coming. So y'all keep y'all's eyes peeled. But yeah, also, again, if you haven't followed Jaffer, who came over with the big raid, go follow Jaffer on Twitch. He's a really nice dude, really friendly, and he literally streams a lot. So if you want to follow some streamers on Twitch, he's one you can have fun following. Plays a lot of Standard and Modern, I believe, has been playing a lot of lately. But he does do some Explorer and some other stuff. So if you want to check him out, he's one you should be following. But all right, that's going to do it. I'm out of here, y'all. I also need to get something to drink and a snack before I go to bed, because I got a lot of content to make tomorrow when things go live for Bloomburrow.